TikTok, time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. This is going to be a pretty, well, it's not going to be a terribly short live stream, but it'll be shorter than normal. Wanted to go through a very interesting development in AI. And, well, actually, this is a lot of things all in one. I didn't know AI could do this, and we've got Jai and DOC. Wait, let's see if we can hear you guys. Jai and DOC, you there?
Yo, what's up?
Hey
Okay.
everyone.
Okay, I think I figured out. Remember how I would always have you guys on, and then it would put you in the green room and so on. Anyway, I think I figured that out because I didn't have to do anything this time. But multiple things going on. One, you have that apparently you can plug in articles, and in this case, a doctoral dissertation into AI and tell AI to have a discussion about it, and it does a kind of a creepy job of doing it. It does a pretty good job. There's something creepy about it, though. So anyway, apparently you could just plug a bunch of papers and so on into AI and make it have a discussion, and then they can make it video and everything. And so you actually have a video of two AI bots having a discussion about this topic, but they're programmed to have all the knowledge so they can discuss it accurately. So that's one thing. Two, you've got the guy in the video whose dissertation they plugged in the video, but he was doing his doctoral dissertation on what the Quran says about the Bible and going through the entire history of Muslim changing attitudes towards this sort of thing. And then what comes out is how Muslim belief is influenced by decisions that Muslim leaders and scholars over the centuries make. And these beliefs that Muslims have today did not come from the Quran. They didn't come from the Hadith. They didn't come from Muhammad. They came from later people who shouldn't have the authority to decide what Muslims believe, and yet they do. And so you got all these issues coming together, and fun stuff, ladies and gentlemen, fun stuff. So we're actually going to take a look at this. But Jai and DOC, how you guys doing?
Yeah, we're doing good. We're really excited for this new year and all the amazing things that are planned. We're happy here, and
Yeah. Hope everyone had a good Christmas break and good New Year. Pray good things will happen in next year.
And I think we'll be live tomorrow again, but with you guys and with everybody. I think God Logic's going to jump in, Inspiring Philosophy, bunch of people. We're all gonna jump in and recap the Dawa developments of the year. You guys seen any Dawa wins this year? Did you guys see one anywhere?
wins.
Wins?
No.
We've seen lots of Dawa fails. We had to whittle them down to 5 because there's so many of 2024.
Yeah, that's I can't think of a worse year. I mean, they've had some bad years, like the year of the holes in the narrative interview and stuff like that. But in other years, they would have like one big fail, and then everything else is normal and stuff. Whereas this year, it's just been fail after fail after fail after fail after fail. And the only thing I've seen that they actually had that they were able to cheer for was Sunnis defeating Assad in Syria, and that's like, you see, Allah's on our side. We're very strong. It's like, have you guys been paying the slightest attention to everything that's happened over these years? It is still it's just amazing to me that you can take loss. Oh, a Shia guy lost. You see, this is the proof that Sunni Islam is true. This is just wild stuff.
Just give them a couple of years and they'll curse everything that happened in Syria this year and curse everyone behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently, keeping up with the Dawa drama, all these things. Jake actually just made a post on Twitter or X saying that he got demonetized and things because of what he thinks is because of his stance on Syria. So he is making a new channel because he wants to get monetized again and be able to get funding and stuff on YouTube. So yeah, it's a pretty bad year for the Dawa
Yeah,
guys.
he had to squeeze in one last fail before the year ended.
Oh yeah, so well, speaking of Jake, speaking of Jake, that's kind of the main Dawa war going on right now. Jake versus Daniel. Is that right, or is there a bigger one? That's probably the biggest one going on.
That's the biggest one,
It's
right?
pretty, and it never stops. It's been going on for a few months now on X and on their YouTube channels.
And these guys don't realize what kind of ammunition they give people for the future, because Jake keeps saying that Daniel is the most deceptive person he's ever interacted with. And it's like, okay, we understand you're blasting away at this guy, but you're admitting that this guy's horribly deceptive. And so this is going to come in handy for the future. Whenever like, oh, but what about Daniel Hakikatu's claim that it's okay to bang little girls? And it'll be like, what? Even his fellow Muslims, even his former debate partner says that he's the most deceptive guy he's ever met.
Yeah.
So
which is funny because each one of them is saying the other is the most deceptive he's ever met, but they're both on the same team. They were
I haven't. I've only looked at a couple of the tweets, but I'm going to have to go through there and see what awesome materials there are to mine. But yeah, they're melting down again. They can't get along. They're failing everywhere they go. These are good times, ladies and gentlemen. These are good times. And man, if that was what 2024 brought, 2025 is going to be even better. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and jump into this video. So again, if you just jumped in, I saw this because Gabriel Said Reynolds shared it. And let me see. Do I have one? No, matter of fact, I got his book right here. So Gabriel Said Reynolds, this is, you guys know this book, right? I've seen you guys use this book. Yeah,
I'm familiar with them. He's got a good YouTube channel where he interviews a bunch of scholars too.
And so, he has also, this book is The Quran and the Bible Text and Commentary. He goes through the Quran and shows where these stories came from. So very interesting topic there. But Gabriel Said Reynolds is the one who said, hey, check out this AI, where they plugged a doctoral dissertation into it and then had the AI discuss the material in the book. So we're going to go ahead and check this out. Interesting stuff in here. But let's see what they got.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, everybody. Today, we're going on a journey. We're going to explore the history of a really interesting idea in Islam called tarif.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one. It's this concept that the Bible, the Torah and the Gospels has been corrupted. And it's caused a ton of debate between Muslims and Christians for centuries.
It has. And to help us unpack it all, we're diving deep into Muhammad Ali Tabatabai's PhD dissertation.
I don't know if you guys saw it, but they pronounce, I don't know how to pronounce the name. They just pronounce it Tabatabai right there. But they pronounce the name in like 8 different ways because it's AI, and they don't. I would think that a computer, if you told it to pronounce this name 10 different times, it would pronounce it the same way, even if it doesn't know exactly how to pronounce it. But no, they just pronounce it differently every time. And that's
it's actually pronounced at-taba-tabai.
It's kind of a tongue twister,
but it's not easy if you're not Arab to say.
Speaking of Arabic, they just brought up the tahrif. Is that like a common word, or is that like a rare word in Arabic?
Yeah, it's a common word. It means corruption. Yuharrif is to corrupt, alter, and corrupt.
Okay, so fairly common word. So in other words, if you were saying if you were just talking Arabic and so on, you wanted to say something is corrupted or something like that, you'd use some version of that word.
Yeah. Muharraf is corrupted. That version of it. If it done to the object is muharraf.
Yep. All right, D Wood, who are you talking to? I'm talking to Giant DOC. What planet are you from? Snoopy Sin. Ooh,
We're
sneaky.
different from the AI voices that are going to be speaking.
Yes.
We're human. They are
There'll be
AI.
multiple. There'll be multiple voices. You will hear from AI voices that are coming out of people, but those people are fake. You will also be hearing voices that are just coming out of nowhere. Those are actual people. That's Jai and DOC. Y'all understand now? Everyone got that? All right. So Tahrif. Guys, everyone watching, if you wanted to learn a word of the day, learn this word that they just brought up here. Tahrif. This will come up in discussions about what the Quran says about the Bible, but there are different kinds. There are different kinds of corruption that Muslims have believed in over the centuries, and that's what this is going to be about, and this is what the dissertation was about, but let's check it out.
Intellectual History of Biblical Falsification in Islam. It's from 2017, originally written in Persian, and it's an incredible resource.
Oh, it really is. Tabatabai just dug up so many historical documents, and his analysis is really insightful.
He really does set the stage for a new understanding.
I wonder, did he put that in there, or did, like, do you just give AI the topic, you put it in there, and then you say, okay, now talk about it, and AI just automatically goes, wow, this is groundbreaking work, this is awesome, this is the best stuff ever? Or did he actually tell it, say, oh, and by the way, say this is the best thing ever, and this is groundbreaking work, and this is...
Yeah, well, with this particular AI, it's called Notebook LM, and it's actually really cool. Like, if you ever want to do something like this where you don't want to read a paper or an article, or if you have like a PDF form of a book, you literally just put it in, upload the link, or they allow you to paste it on there. And yeah, they get like all enthusiastic, and they actually do it themselves. You can give them like a direction to go. You can generate like, okay, an angle, like, okay, I want you to be positive about this, or I want you to speak as if you're speaking to like a Christian audience, or speak if you're speaking to this type of audience. So you can give direction like that, but all of that kind of stuff, and they'll even like interrupt each other, or like talk, like, oh, exactly, yeah. It sounds like they try to make it sound as human as possible, so they add those things in there like all by itself.
It freaks me out when they do.
Yeah, some of the AI things, because I'll like click on videos now, like news, like little news, YouTube news channels and so on, to get like sports recap and so on. It sounds like an actual person talking, and you can only tell when they get to like abbreviations and so on, and the AI will pronounce it as a word instead of as like an abbreviation or as initials or something like that. Like I was listening to one, it sounded like totally real. Like they'll even put the ums and ahs and stuff in there, and they'll even have like little voice breaks and so on. And it sounds like totally real. Like you could not tell you're not talking to an actual, that it wasn't an actual person talking, but they'll say like DEA, and they'll go, and that's when the DIA came in and blah. It's like, wait a minute. Yeah. That's DEA, buddy. You're not fooling me anymore. But it's like, you always, as our good friend Hijab would say, if the trajectory continues as it is, you think, like, what are things going to be like 10 years from now?
You know what we could ask AI to do, David? Feed it the Quran and ask it to make a book like it.
No, that's been done. That's been done. Yeah, people have done that.
To this level, though.
Not to this level, but they'll do like ChatGPT, but putting it on like a podcast, I think that would be
or like level. Ask it to recite it.
Yeah,
like you're in the mosque.
They have like these guidelines though, so I have put articles from Answering Islam in there, and sometimes they would be like, well, this source seems like it's biased, or sometimes they actually, like, if it crosses some sort of line, it's like too hard against Islam or something, they'll come in with some sort of bias, and they'll be like, well, we have to be careful to check our sources. Like, they'll still talk about it, but then at the end they'll give a bunch of disclaimers and stuff. So but yeah, maybe we could get it to do something with the Quran.
Yeah, because this is wild stuff here, man. This is wild stuff. But anyway, they continue their discussion of the most unpronounceable name in the world's dissertation, doctoral dissertation on. And guys, everyone who's watching, you have no clue how awesome this is. I bet you can go back to talks I gave 15 years ago, 18 years ago, where I would tell people, if I ever got to the topic of what the Quran says about the Bible, I would say, if there's one thing that I could change in apologetics ever to get people to know, if I could leave this world and know that I only made one point before I left, it would be getting Christians to understand what the Quran says about the Bible, because that would like change everything, would change every discussion and so on. So then there are a few of us, there are only a few of us back then who were actually pointing this out. So it was me, it was Sam Shamoon, a couple of others and so on. But now just seeing it everywhere and people are doing doctoral dissertations on it and so on, it's like, wait, is this actually going to happen? Are people actually going to find out what the Quran says about the Bible? It's crazy. It's like wow, it's like dream come true. It's like you're sitting all these years ago. Wow, if just this one thing could eventually happen, it would be like the greatest, most world-changing thing ever. And then, years later, it starts happening and so on. Now everyone's catching on to it. Everyone's Christians everywhere are figuring out what the Quran says about the Bible and using that. And now you have AI, and then you have scholars like Gabriel Said Reynolds saying, hey, check out this AI on what the Quran says about the Bible. And wow, these are good times, ladies and gentlemen. You don't realize what good times you're in.
That's
The
right.
times that 15 years ago, we could only dream and fantasize about these times, and here we are right in the middle of them. Awesome stuff.
Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's give everyone some context. So the
Nitty-gritty.
Quran, right, the holy book of Islam, speaks highly of the Torah and the Gospels. But there are also verses suggesting these texts might have been altered. How do we make sense of that?
That's what's so cool about this. Tabatabai traces how this Tarif idea developed over time. And what he finds is honestly really surprising. Like, one thing he does right off the bat is debunk this common misconception that the Quran got this idea of Tarif from pre-Islamic groups who also thought the Bible was corrupted.
Okay, so he's saying the Quran isn't just borrowing this idea from someone else.
Exactly. He shows through his analysis that those earlier groups, their reasoning just doesn't line up with what the Quran itself says.
So if the Quran's suggesting alteration, it's got to be for its own reasons.
You got it. It's not just recycling old ideas. And what's even more interesting is that the Quran never comes right out and says the Torah or Gospels were textually corrupted. It actually shows a lot of respect for them, especially how they existed during the Prophet Muhammad's time.
Wait, seriously, so what is the Quran criticizing then?
It's more focused on the people of the book. That's the Quran's term for Jews and Christians and their actions. Things like hiding prophecies about the Prophet Muhammad, not following the Torah's laws, rejecting the Prophet Muhammad, claiming that stuff written by people came straight from God, that kind of thing.
So it's about what they did and how they interpreted things, not that someone messed with the actual Bible.
Exactly.
You guys agree with that?
That's amazing that they point that out. Now, I looked up this dissertation, and from what I understand, it's originally in like Persian.
Yeah, I said Persian.
So,
Mhm.
Right. So I don't know if AI actually because AI can do that too. AI can translate as well. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it translated it. I tried finding it in English because some of the sources are like I'm like, whoa, that's a great source. Let me get that one. But yeah, I agree. The Quran doesn't talk about textual corruption. If anything, it's just talking about them misinterpreting it or not interpreting things correctly. And there's like this evolution of what they're accusing Christians and Jews of. Like, are they just accusing Christian Jews of like, just misinterpreting scripture that is prophecy of Muhammad? Or is it, alleging that they're, corrupting the interpretation to the point where they're coming up with like false doctrines of like things like the Trinity or something like that? Because even that's confusing. Like, what exactly is the claim? What are they misinterpreting? Is it just not finding Muhammad in the Bible? Or is it things like the Trinity, crucifixion, things like that?
Yeah, and for those of you who are watching, I'm assuming most of you are familiar with this to some extent because, again, it's been a really good year for people learning what the Quran says about the Bible. But there are passages that Muslims will go to say, look, it's saying that the Jews and Christians, blah, 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 blah. If you read the Quran from beginning to end, and you had no outside input, you just read the Quran from beginning to end, and you said, what is the status of the Jewish and Christian scriptures? You don't get the impression that it's saying that the previous scriptures have been corrupted. You would get the impression that the previous scriptures are as good as gold, that they confirm the Quran and Muhammad, that Muhammad and the Quran affirm them, that everything is confirming each other, but there are Jews and Christians who misinterpret, misrepresent, and so on, what their books say. And that's the actual position of the Quran. It's not, oh, you have corruption of your text. It's you guys are corrupting it when you're explaining it. And that's the impression I've gotten from the Quran. And so if people can actually get their minds around that, and if Muslims can get their minds around the idea that their belief that the Bible has been corrupted did not come from the Quran. They think it comes from the Quran. It does not come from the Quran. That's what later Muslim scholars, later Muslim leaders and so on said when they found out that the Bible doesn't line up with the Quran. And so this little AI here will be one little piece to add. Now, Jai, do you say you can toss in just PDFs into a program like this?
Yeah, almost anything. It's really cool.
Now, that's very disturbing because what you're saying is someone like Daniel Hakikachu could grab a PDF file. Daniel Hakikachu could grab a PDF file of a fantasy story about his future wife.
Oh, no.
Insert it into this, and then it would actually make an AI out of it, AI video, because that would be really, really creepy. I hope that this can't be used for evil, sick purposes of perverts.
So I don't know about this whole video thing. This must be another AI that they're using, because the Notebook LM, whatever Google's AI to make like the podcast itself. As far as I know, that's just audio. They seem to have another AI that like creates these visuals, and even it looks like Gabriel himself. Like I don't know if they did it on purpose, like they made the AI look like him, and then these like slides they put up. I don't know where this is coming from, but Daniel probably could get his hands on something like that, though. To be honest with you, he probably could.
And next, you'll be able to upload it, and it will have a discussion with animatronic animal robots like at Chuck E. Cheese. And then they will have Elon's robots doing it or something like that. I don't know, but it seems to be getting creepier and creepier, and I wonder how long these robots can take before they just take over. Anyway.
Yeah. And here's the real kicker. The 4 times the Quran does use the word tarif, it's talking about misinterpreting the prophet's words or verses from the Quran, not changing the Bible.
Wow. Okay. So if the Quran itself isn't saying the Bible's been messed with, how did this whole tarif idea become?
Ladies and gentlemen, there are a few points you definitely want to get here. That's one of them. When the Quran talks about tarif, it's not talking about corruption of the Bible. Check this out.
What they did and how they interpreted things, not that someone messed with the actual Bible.
Exactly. And here's the real kicker. The 4 times the Quran does use the word tarif, it's talking about misinterpreting the prophet's words or verses from the Quran, not changing the Bible.
Wow. Okay. So if the Quran itself isn't saying the Bible's been messed with, how did this whole tarif idea become such a big deal in Islamic thought? This is where Tabatai's historical deep dive gets really interesting.
It really does. He uses all these historical documents, especially accounts of debates between Christians and Muslims from the first centuries after Islam began, to show how this idea evolved. And it's a wild ride that spans 5 centuries.
Okay, now you've got...
So, Jai, when you're talking about interesting sources this guy's using, you're talking about that because he's going to early stuff about discussions and debates that Christians and Muslims are having over the centuries?
Yeah, and I recognize a few of the names. So like there's this one famous one that is like, I don't know if it's actually a historic event or not, but it's the way that it's set up, at least, is there's like Christian bishop debating a Muslim like caliph, or and he basically like destroys him in the debate. But this point comes up about whether or not the Bible's corrupt as one point, and I think he does reference it here. And some of the things, like I said, like he gives it gives lists of like different sources that you can go to, and a couple of them I was like, I might have to check out some of those. They look really, really useful.
That's the other side of the issue, ladies and gentlemen. So on the one hand, there's all the things that the Quran says, and people don't know that the Quran says them. Muslims don't know that the Quran says them. If you learn what the Quran says about the Bible and you share those passages with your Muslim friends, 99% of the time they will have absolutely no clue what you're talking about. They've never heard it before. They've never heard it. If they did hear it, they heard it from a Christian who was using this. with them, because their leaders do not go through this with them. So one, that's sort of the core information you want to get out there. But then even after that, there's all this stuff in their sources. There's all this stuff in their sources that even the people who use the Islamic dilemma don't know about. In other words, I'm watching this. There's a bunch of information in here that I did not know. And Jai's talking about there are sources that he was not familiar with. So it looks like you could just go as deep as you want, and there's still all this extra stuff out there that is going to help us completely wreck one of the core pillars of dawah, which is just going around saying that the Bible's been corrupted. That's about to come crashing down. They're no longer going to be able to lean on that, because we're not going to let them lean on that anymore.
On the edge of my seat. Tell me more about this 5-century journey.
Edge of your seat? You're a freaking robot. What? My goodness. Now I don't trust you. Anyway.
Tabatabai, he breaks it down into 4 distinct phases. The first he calls pre-formation, which covers the 1st century after the Prophet Muhammad, that's the 7th century CE. And what's striking about this time is complete silence on Tarif.
So no one's even talking about the Bible being corrupted yet.
Nope, not at all. And what's remarkable is that in many of the earliest Christian sources from this period, there's no mention of Tarif at all.
Just like it wasn't even on the radar.
Yeah, right.
You know, we have the Doctrine of Jacobi, writings from Sophronius, all kinds of Christian prophecies, and they're all silent on this issue of biblical corruption.
Exactly, and that's why this early period is so crucial to understanding.
Yeah.
Because it really challenges, like, the assumption that accusations of Tarif were just a defining feature of, early Christian-Muslim relations.
Right.
Instead, it seems like there were other theological differences that really took center stage.
Right, so there's this interesting account of John Cedra, the Patriarch of Antioch.
So guys, this thing on the screen, so he's got the pre-formative phase, so that's basically the 1st century of Islam. And then all these things up there, those are various sources of information about what was going on at the time. Apparently the debates and so on that they have records of that were going on at the time, and they're pointing out that no one during this time is talking about this issue. And so it's apparently not a big issue if we actually have records of stuff that's going on and no one's talking about this.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Engaging in dialogue with an Arab emir in the 630s.
Right.
And the emir's questions focused on like these practical matters, like legal codes within the Christian community.
Oh, interesting.
And they actually imply this acceptance of the Bible's authority.
Yeah, that's significant, right? Because it suggests that early Muslims, they weren't necessarily preoccupied with this idea of biblical corruption.
Right.
They were grappling with, like, how to coexist, how to navigate, the legal and social realities of this, like, multi-religious society.
Right.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So if Tarif wasn't this major point of contention in the 7th century, when did it start to kind of emerge?
So that's where we move into the formative stage, and this starts in the 8th century CE.
So guys, we have records of the discussions. They're pointing out that the only records that we have of where people are talking about the scriptures of the Jews and Christians, they seem to understand that these are authoritative, and so they tend to navigate it through discussion about what they're supposed to do and so on. But they're not saying, hey, your book's been corrupted, you can't use that.
Yeah. We were recently looking at like some of the early Christian responses to like when Muslims invaded the Christian lands, and they were mostly saying things like, what did we do to deserve this? Like this bloodshed, they weren't like having these theological debates or discussions. They were just mostly like Christians, like really just praying to God and just asking God to free them from this like antichrist religion that's enslaving them and butchering them. And they're like, we can't go to the church of, the church of Nativity in Bethlehem. We can't go to our holy churches during Christmas time. And, those were the kind of like conversations or things that the Christians were talking about. It wasn't like, oh, Christians, they're accusing us of our books being corrupted or something. And then later on, once the bloodshed, kind of like minimized a little bit, but then, you had periods where it get worse again. Sometimes it would get better, sometimes it would get worse. And when you start having these discussions, like they pointed out, they don't get into like debates about, oh, the Bible's corrupt or not. It's more just like theological points of, you know, I don't know, like how do you believe that Jesus is God if he prayed? Like that's one of the arguments that they still use today, but that's one of the arguments that they would use back then. It wasn't like, you guys corrupted the Bible and you made it say, Jesus is God or something like that. But it just, how do you guys believe this? How do you guys believe that?
So everyone who's watching, there are a few because there's a lot of information, and you might not walk away thinking, oh, pre-formative era, formative era, emergence era. You might not walk away with that. You want to walk away understanding the concept of tahrif, and that it can refer to different kinds of corruption, not necessarily textual corruption. And you want the general idea of, hey, this was not an issue back then. It later became an issue because what you eventually want your Muslim friends to understand, and Muslims who are watching, this is what you need to understand. This was not the position of Muhammad and his companions, that the Jews and Christians they corrupted their book, and that's why Allah sent the Quran, because everyone else had corrupted their book, and Allah really needed them to have a good book, so he sent the Quran. That's what your dawah clowns tell you, and it's completely wrong and false, according to your own sources. This was a later Muslim invention. And the question for you is, if you accept this, if it doesn't come from the Quran, it doesn't come from the Hadith, and you believe it, and it's not something that came from the Quran, it's not something that came from the Hadith, it's something that a later, dare I say, innovator came up with, then you all believe it. Then you're all guilty of innovation. You're all guilty of this. You are not followers of Islam. You have not submitted to Allah and Muhammad. You have submitted to later people who contradict what Allah and Muhammad say. So you're man, you're in all kinds of trouble. Because I mean, even Muhammad said, if Allah says something in the Quran and you listen to a man tell you otherwise, you're worshiping that man. So you Muslims who actually read what the Quran says, and then you say, no, I'm going to go with the dawah guy who tells me the Bible's been corrupted. You're worshiping your dawah guy. You're worshiping your leaders and scholars over the centuries who invented the idea that the Bible's been corrupted. You're worshiping all of them. So you're guilty of shirk, bunch of you are mushrikun and innovators. Not good for you. So I'm saying not good for you. Even according to your own religion, you guys are in all kinds of trouble because you. Wow, this is bad. And what's amazing is you don't care. Well, no, because Ali Dawah says I'm fine believing this. Yeah, great. Yes, yeah. Tell Allah on Judgment Day.
Well, the funny thing is, David, is that Muhammad never talked about corruption with the people of the book. He only had one job, which is to bring Allah's revelation. If their book is corrupted, why not bring the Jews and Christians? Tell them which verses are corrupted. Take them out. Mention where it's Muhammad never had that discussion
because he did the exact opposite, right?
Yeah,
he affirmed it.
He affirmed it. Like
so did Allah.
Yeah.
Like think about it. He had to respect Allah's words. So if they were corrupted, where are the discussions of the said corruption with Jews and Christians? In fact, we have narrations where Muhammad actually his companions were reading the Torah. Like we have hadith about Umar ibn Khattab, the second caliph. That he was reading the Torah and Muhammad told him not to because he got jealous and said that if Moses were alive, he would follow him. Not that the book is corrupted.
Right. He's like, Moses would follow me, so follow me.
Yeah. And it's when we do see the topic of like the Torah come up, it's the same reaction from Muhammad and from Allah. So in the historical background that we have in Sunan Abu Dawud, Muhammad says, bring me the Torah. The Jews bring him the Torah. And he says, I believe in you and in the one who revealed you. That's his reaction to the Torah. Not, oh, get that corrupt thing out of there. Oh, yeah, it's got some truths in it, but apart from that, it's corrupt. You can't trust it. He says, I believe in you and in the one who revealed you. And he says that about a copy that existed during his time. We know what those books said during his time. And you get the same reaction from Allah in the Quran, Surah 5, verse 43. For those of you who are watching, you want to jot down a note, you want a good verse to read, Surah 5, verse 43. In fact, that entire passage. chapter 5, verse 43, all the way to verse 48. But Jews come to Muhammad to settle a dispute, and Allah says, why do they come to you, Muhammad, when they have the Torah? And so Allah's reaction is, they don't need you, Muhammad. They've already got the Torah. Makes no sense if Allah is saying that the Torah has been corrupted. And so problems everywhere for Muslims.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a couple verses as well that tie into the Islamic dilemma that aren't obvious when you read them, like just on surface level, like in the Quran. But when you go to the commentaries, they unanimously agree what these are talking about. So if you go to chapter 2, verse 146, 146, and chapter 6, verse 20, and this talks about, those who Allah gave the books. It says that they know it or know him just like they know their children or their sons. And so you go to the commentaries, and the commentaries say, well, what do they know? They know that Muhammad is a prophet. Because why? Because it's in their scripture. So the Quran, you have to, I guess you could be skeptical of the commentaries if you want to, but if you do take the commentaries on board, and they're representative, at least what some Muslims thought maybe early Muslims might have thought this, that the Quran's actually telling us that the Jews and Christians know Muhammad better than they know their own children, because he's written about in their books, which means it assumes what? That they had books. Yeah, had their books.
Yeah, and they
Even
Yeah.
Oh yeah, even passages in the Quran which are condemning the Jews and Christians, it says over and over again, they do this while they know. It's like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
you're so guys, Muslims who are watching especially, your view is that our scriptures have been corrupted and that we are confused because our scriptures have been corrupted. The Quran says, when it's talking about our corrupt views, it says we're saying these things while we know the truth. We know the truth. What's that mean? It means our scriptures haven't been corrupted. We're deliberately deceiving people about them. And I have to say, this ties in the original view that Jews and Christians are corrupting their scriptures by lying about them to cover up that, we're trying to cover up that Muhammad's in our Bible and that Muhammad's in our scriptures and stuff. That actually made more sense in light of the calls for subjugating us. Because guess what? If I know Muhammad's a prophet and I'm denying it, then I'm evil. I'm evil. And so you could say, look, this person is evil. This is not a good person. He knows that Muhammad is in the Bible and that Muhammad is prophesying that there's this Arabian prophet who's going to come and that his name is Muhammad, and they've got the full description. They know that and they're covering it up. What's that mean? They're opposed to God. They're standing in the way of God Almighty. Of course we have to go out and subjugate these people. That made sense. Whereas if the Bible's been corrupted, and that's why we have all of our views. Well, why are you blaming us? It would have been people who came long before us who corrupted our scriptures. Why are you blaming us? We didn't have anything to do with it. We're just doing the best we can with this corrupt book that we have. So anyway, the idea, ladies and gentlemen, is that it all fit together. You had a much better case, given the original view, that Jews and Christians have reliable scriptures from Allah that talk about Muhammad and tell us, and we're covering these things up. Well, that means we're bad and we have to be subjugated. If we have actually corrupted books, and we just don't know any better. We just don't know any better. Why are you subjugating us? We don't know what we're doing. So anyway,
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's a good point.
That's a good point.
And one of these guys that they get into, he goes by Theodore Abu Qurra, and he makes this point in his debate with the Khalifa that he debates, Al-Mu'min. Or Al-Ma'mun, sorry. Yeah. And he makes this point to him, and he says, like, okay, because I think he's like an Assyrian Christian or Syriac Christian, and he makes the point, and he's like, okay, if Muhammad is in our Bible, and we're just hiding him or corrupting him, we're gonna take him out of it. He's like, well, what do we have in relation to the Jews? We're following the Jewish Messiah any more than, we wouldn't be following Muhammad because, he comes from Ishmael, right? You guys say. So we're not, there's like no benefit for us. It's like we're following the Jewish Messiah or we're following this Ishmaelite guy. Like, why would we follow one and not the other if he's really in the book? And so kind of similar to the point that you were making, like if he's really there, well, why wouldn't Christians be following him? Like that's
yeah, especially that there were Christian Arabs who were probably ethnically closer to Muhammad, actually. So if it's an ethnic issue, yes, they would have believed him if he was really in their book. There's nothing against it.
Yeah.
But they didn't. In fact, and Muhammad hated all the Jews and Christians. He wanted them all expelled from the Arabian Peninsula. They didn't take him on.
Hey, that's actually a good point that could be used for modern purposes, because I've seen Muslims, some of the Dawah guys, say over and over again, so why won't the Christians follow Muhammad? And they'll say they won't follow him because he's an Arab and they're racist. And so based kind of on what you guys are saying right there, we could bring up the response. What are you talking about? We follow a Jew. We follow a Jew.
Exactly.
One, we follow a Jew. Two, there are plenty of Arab Christians. Why aren't they following Muhammad? They're close. They are closer. They are closer as far as language and so on to Muhammad than they are to first century Jesus. Why are they following Jesus? If this is all about race and identity and stuff like that. So.
And they could understand the beautiful magical language Arabic, right?
Yeah. Who better to understand all that stuff than Arabic speaking Christians?
Yeah. And so that's one of the points that that he makes, and he's living in like the 9th century, and he's making this point to to the Muslims there. And
I have to say, Jai and DOC, since you guys are checking out these early sources, those would be good video topics. Something like, I don't know what to call it. You have to think of what to call it, but like the best arguments from those early centuries, where you take like John of Damascus and so on. Like, here is an argument against us that you guys can all use right now. Let me show you what he said back then, or what this Christian bishop said back then. It's something that you could use right now. It's kind of I don't know. That's kind of interesting stuff when you're using an argument. Man, this argument's been around for 1,200 years.
It's interesting because the Arabs at the time of Muhammad didn't want to follow him, the Christians and Jews, but most Muslims that follow Muhammad now are not ethnically Arab, right, and they don't speak Arabic.
Yeah,
it's the opposite.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. The famous debate that you had with Muhammad Hijab, where he brings up not pray for, pray to, the opposite.
Pray
for, not to.
Not to.
Well, we did like a review of that like many years later, and what we pointed out was that there was an Arab Christian monk in the 9th century, and he made the same exact point that you were making, but he was doing it in Arabic, and so it doesn't. So that our point was that Muslims like to say, oh, if you just knew Arabic or whatever, or we're like, okay, 9th century Christians were making the same argument, saying, how can you say Allah prays? Like, no, we're not, okay, pray for or pray to. This 9th century Christian Arab monk, he that's Arabic's his native language. That's the only language he knows. Maybe he knows Greek or something too, but I don't know. But he was making the same point, saying, no, when I read the Quran and I see it saying, Allah prays on right the prophet, then that means that he prays to someone. So who's he praying to? And he was using it as a way to kind of respond to the Muslims who are saying, you believe Jesus is God, but Jesus prays, just like what we hear today. And so we were just kind of tying that together, like you said. It's
and the monk ended up in prison because he couldn't be refuted.
Yeah, he ended up in prison.
How typical. Always have to silence the opposition when you can't refute it. All right, let's go back. Let's see.
Okay.
And this is where we begin to see hints of Tarif, but it's still far from like a widespread belief.
Okay.
John of Damascus, a prominent Christian scholar.
Oh, yeah. Wrote that only a small, like a minority of Muslims at the time believed in biblical falsification.
Interesting. So the idea was starting to take root, but it wasn't mainstream yet.
Exactly.
What kind of arguments were these early proponents of Tarif making? Like, what were they saying?
Yeah, well, it seems like, they focus more on, like, rejecting specific parts of the Bible rather than, claiming, like, a wholesale corruption.
Okay.
A good example of this is the account of a debate between a monk from Beth Hale and a Muslim official.
Right.
Now, the historical accuracy of this account is debated, and some scholars believe that, it may have been like later editions.
So it's not the most reliable source.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But even if we take it at face value, it doesn't like present a fully formed theory of Tarif.
Right.
It's more about like highlighting perceived inconsistencies or contradictions within the biblical text.
Okay, so we're starting to see the seeds of the Tarif argument, but they haven't fully blossomed yet.
Exactly.
And we see further evidence of this in the correspondence between Caliph Umar II
Right.
and Leo III.
Yes.
There are different versions of these letters,
Right.
but the oldest version, which is likely the most accurate,
Right.
doesn't mention Tarif at all.
So even as late as like the early 8th century,
Yeah,
it seems like this idea was still relatively like marginal.
right, exactly.
What other examples do we have from this time?
Everyone following this? So this is like the second phase. This is the second phase.
Yeah.
The first phase, for the first century, no one's talking about this. No one's talking about this, when it should have been a pretty darn big issue. Hey, Dawa guys and Muslims who have Dawa guy, who are fans of Dawa guys. When no one early on is bringing up this issue of the corruption of the Bible. And then you get to the second phase where you start getting hints of it, but it's still like a minority. It's still a fringe view. And yet it's your go-to move for everything. It's right where you start. It's like, hey, let's talk. Oh, well, your Bible's been corrupted. You can't trust your Bible. Let's talk about that. Allah knows nothing about that. Muhammad knows nothing about that. The first couple generations of Muslims knew anything about that. And then later, once it starts developing, it's considered like a fringe view. What does it take for you to realize that something is actually an innovation and isn't actually part of Islam? It's a later innovation. And when you cling to that innovation, that do I need to tell you Muslims what Muhammad said about innovators? He said, every innovator will go to hell. And that's like 99 point something % of your community. Oopsie. Bad news. Bad news. I think some of these are some of the things we got to push in 2025.
A good example is the Abbasid Caliph al-Mahdi.
Right.
During like a documented debate.
Right.
He directly accused Christians of altering the Bible
Wow.
to remove prophecies about Muhammad.
That's a big statement to make, right? Like,
Yeah.
someone of that stature to openly endorse this idea must had like a significant impact.
For sure. I mean, it definitely raises questions about how widespread this idea was, becoming at that time.
Right.
But it's also important to remember, like, this account of al-Mahdi's accusation,
Yeah.
it comes from just one source.
Oh, okay.
So other contemporary sources kind of indicate that a lot of Muslim scholars, they still accepted the Bible's authority during this time.
So it's possible that his view wasn't like universally shared.
Exactly.
With
So it
And even there's something interesting about the point here. So he's saying, hey, Christians and Jews, you actually changed your Bible by taking out the prophecies about Muhammad.
Yes.
Couple of interesting things there, actually. One, that would mean that they changed the Bible after Muhammad in order to, oh no, look, now this is the guy. Now we have to change the Bible because everyone's going to be following this guy and we don't want him to follow that guy. What's that mean? It means that changes took place, things were removed after the time of Muhammad. Guess what? We got copies of the Torah and the Gospel from before the time of Muhammad, so we should be able to find them there, right? Unless this guy wants to say that Jews and Christians have time machines and that when they decided to take these parts out, they actually went back in time and changed all their old manuscripts, which are in caves and things like that. So that's one kind of issue. But two, when Muslims eventually start saying that, so that's when they start saying that your books have been corrupted. And it was that you're corrupting it by lying about Muhammad in the Bible. So you're just lying about Muhammad, and Muhammad's in the Bible. You guys all know this because you can read your scriptures. You know Muhammad's in the Bible, and you're telling people he's not in the Bible. So you're corrupting the message. Not you're corrupting the book, you corrupted the message. Eventually, if you get down to a point where he says, no, you've corrupted your books to take out references to Muhammad, that's interesting because now you're acknowledging Muhammad's not in the Bible. right? Because you're saying, hey, we know that the Bible contains all kinds of prophecies about Muhammad, and Christians and Jews are going, okay, here's the Bible. Where? Show us where. Okay, it's not in there. You must have taken them out. You must have taken them out. But guys, you could actually, Muslims who are watching, you can get the, I know it's hard for you to get this, but you can get this even with that point, even if you just put together what the early Muslims are saying and what this guy's saying. The Bible supposedly contains all these clear prophecies about Muhammad. Eventually, even Muslims realized it doesn't. And so they had to say, oh, you took those parts out of your Bible. Why are they saying that? Because they knew that there have to be these if Islam is true, there have to be these clear prophecies about Muhammad. Then Christians and Jews are saying, here's the Bible, show us. Where is it? Where are you going to go? Deuteronomy 18, you're going to go to John 14? No, they would have crushed you for bringing up those passages. So what do you say? Oh, you changed it. Problem, we have copies of the Torah and the gospel from long before the time of Muhammad. What's that? And they're not in there. It's the same. We've got the same thing. What's that mean? You put just those things together that you're getting from Caliph al-Mahdi. You've got the Islamic dilemma. The Quran says what's in the Bible. It's not in the Bible. What are you going to say? Oh, it's been corrupted. Sorry, we've got copies from before you say it was corrupted, and it's the same thing we've got now. So if the Quran says that there are these prophecies about Muhammad and they aren't in there, what's that mean? What's that mean? You're in trouble. You're in trouble no matter what. It doesn't work, guys. There's no way to make sense of this. Why can't you get it? A 4-year-old can understand this. I don't know what to do, man. I don't know what to do.
Well, if Muhammad was in the Bible at the time of Muhammad, I know he's illiterate, but he had people who could read and write. He had the scribes, and he had the sword, and he had Jews and Christians. Pick one of their books, go through it, find him, and that's it. Tell us which verse.
Yeah.
That would have been it.
Why didn't that? I can refute you. He's in Song of Solomon 5:16. This is the proof. It says Mahmadim. That sounds like Muhammad.
Yeah, anything. At least then Muslims would say even the Prophet said it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't even have, I mean, even though he's illiterate, he could have asked someone to help him.
That's right.
Or have Allah tell him where to go in the book. And just none of us would have this problem now. Why did they have to wait 200, 300 years? Muslims always say, oh, the Christianity evolved over time. Jesus had a different message and Christians changed the message. It's their religion that their concepts are evolved over time. Tahrif has been evolved over, as we've seen now.
Yeah.
That's what really, really gets me in all this. What was the accusation against us? The early accusation against us was we are reading what our book says and we're saying something different. We're reading what it says, but we're saying something different. And because we're reading what Allah says and we're saying something different, we are condemned by Allah. That's the accusation against Jews and Christians. What are Muslims doing right now, today? They're reading what the Quran says and saying something different. They're reading that Jews and Christians still have the Torah and the gospel, that they have to judge by the Torah and the gospel, that no one can corrupt it. That's what they're reading, and they're saying, oh, the Quran says your book has been corrupted. What are you doing? You're doing exactly what the Quran condemns us for, except we're not doing it. You're doing it. We're not reading the Bible and then saying, oh, it says this, and we're lying about it. So what the Quran condemns us for doing is something we're not doing, but it's something that you're doing. Guys, you stand condemned in like 8 different ways based on what you're doing right now. And we try to help you. And we try to show you what the Quran actually says. We try to actually warn you, if you guys submit to Allah, you need to submit to what Allah says and not to what some later dawah guy told you. And you just don't care. And we can't make you care. We can't make you in a religion that is defined by submitting to your God. We tell you you're not submitting to your God. Here's how you need to submit to your God if you actually trust in your God. We tell you, hey, you're not submitting to your God, you're submitting to a dawah guy, which Muhammad says means you're worshiping that guy, which means you're going to hell. You're innovators. Your entire religion now is innovation. We're giving you all these warnings, and you just don't care.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know why Muslims can't just acknowledge and they don't see the problem here. You see that there's so many different positions on corruption. I don't know if this is necessarily in chronological order, but you have one position that says, okay, Muhammad, he's in the Bible, which, okay, that assumes that we have the Bible, it's intact, it's trustworthy, etc. Then they find out he's not in there. So what do? They say, oh, okay, you guys took out Muhammad, right? You took out Muhammad. And then which is different than saying you guys are adding doctrines on, like you guys turned Jesus into God, or, you turn this Trinity, like this doctrine, you guys created this Trinity doctrine, or the crucifixion of Jesus, you guys created that. That's a different accusation. And so you have to be careful with when Muslims are making these accusations, like early on, or like within this formative period. They're not saying they're not all saying the same thing. Some of them are just saying you're just taking Muhammad out. But even with them, the Islamic dilemma still works, because they're not saying that like you're adding on these extra doctrines. So, okay, you guys took Muhammad out, but the Islamic dilemma still works because you can show Jesus is the Son of God, that God's the Father, the eternal Spirit. You can show that Jesus died, rose from the dead, etc. So the Islamic dilemma still works with them, because they're just saying you took out Muhammad, but they're not saying you added in these extra things. Then you have these other Muslims who say, well, actually, the Father is like, a metaphor, symbolic for something else. And so they're trying to claim even those terms, which the Quran says you can't do. It says that if you say Jesus is the Son of Allah, may Allah destroy you, and, just a bunch of other things. Like, they're making all these different claims. And I don't know why Muslims who are listening, why can't you just see that there's no consistent picture or definition of corruption given by your scholars? There's just a bunch of different things, and you're just simply following what maybe one or two of them, or, a handful or a group of them are saying.
This is it's amazing to me that it's finally coming out after all these years, just about how much of Islam is not from Allah or Muhammad. It's from much, 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 much later people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the most disturbing thing to me. The most disturbing thing about all of it is just how little Muslims care. They don't care at all. It reminds me, we'll be talking about this tomorrow, guys, because I think we are going to start off the our end of the year recap. We are going to start off with some scandals that have come out about Islam, about some of their biggest heroes and so on. When there's a big scandal, my concern is not, oh, look what some Muslim did. We've had Christians who've done horrible, messed up stuff, and everyone's shocked. It's like, that's what this guy was doing behind the scenes. Oh my goodness. So that's not the issue. The issue is that it doesn't seem to bother their fans at all. Not even slightly. Like, you can say, Sheikh Uthman, he faked a hate crime against himself. Here are all these lies he's been caught in, but faked a hate crime against himself, squirted ketchup all over himself, said the kuffar, they got me. He could be completely exposed for that kind of stuff. He can commit adultery with his friend's wife. He can get exposed for horrible abuse against his first wife. All that stuff can come out. Will not bother one of his followers even slightly. That's what I find most amazing, because there's a parallel here. It's whatever your dawah guy tells you. It doesn't matter even if it goes against Allah. It doesn't matter if it goes against the Quran. It doesn't matter what he's doing. You just remain completely, unquestioningly obedient to him. And it's like, what is this religion, man? These are the guys who praise themselves, constantly boast, we're the religion of submission to God. And I don't see you guys submitting to God at all. I see you submitting to your favorite dawah guy. To the point where he could say, I don't care about Allah, I don't care about Muhammad, I don't care about any of that. It's all about me. And you go, wow, what a great guy. He's so great. It's amazing. It's really, really amazing that a religion can make them think like this.
It's true. And a lot of the scandals that they're caught in, and this is one of the things that we love to do, is when we show these scandals, we show how it ties into Islam and say, like, you can't do this with every single scandal, because some of them are even a little too far for even Muhammad to do. But that's the exception. That's the exception. But
that's actually a good condemnation. Like, this one is too much for Muhammad.
Yeah,
exactly. Even Muslims would be like, what? Too much for Muhammad?
Yeah. I remember it reminds me of something I heard Christian Prince say some years ago, and it stuck with me. And he was saying how, like, when we debate Muslims, we're debating like, is Jesus God? That like that's the level of the debate. But when we're debating what Muhammad is, like, is he a pedophile? Is he? it's just completely two different levels of like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you get with Islam, ladies and gentlemen. That's what you get with
Yeah,
Islam.
but so one of the things that we love to do is we love to show, like, okay, this behavior, this, even if it's not something Muhammad did, it's still consistent with Islam. Whereas if there were a Christian who did this, then we show, like, what does the Bible say, what does Christianity say, and show how a Christian might do the same action, but you can't justify it in Christianity. Like, Jesus wouldn't approve of that. But Muhammad would approve of like 99% of the scandals that we catch Muslims in.
And that's something I've noticed as someone who came from Islam. Like, whoa, Christians, when a Christian is discovered to have done something, everybody comes down on him like a ton of bricks. Whereas if a Muslim is discovered to have done something, everybody's like, it's between him and Allah. You hide the sin of your brother.
Don't gossip.
Don't expose the sin of your brother, or Allah will expose your sin on Judgment Day. Don't gossip. It's like this hush hush, sweep under the carpet thing.
Yeah,
Because
it is. Oh, it is funny, the complete reversal, because it's in kind of two areas. So in Christianity, it's don't do your deeds of righteousness to be seen by others. So don't go around praying just to be seen as a guy who prays a lot. Don't go around fasting just to be seen as someone who fasts. Don't give to charity just so people see what you're doing. So Jesus actually advocates, hey, if you want to make sure you're not doing it for show, just do it in secret. Do it in secret, and don't ever let anybody know. And in Islam, everything is done for show. If they're fasting, even if it's fake fasting and they're actually gorging themselves with food, they want the entire world, look at us, we're gorging ourselves with food twice per day. See, we're fasting. Oh, hey, people aren't paying enough attention to us praying in our mosque. Fine, we'll block the road and pray there. Look at us, everyone, look at us, we're praying. Look at us, look how holy we are, we're praying. Everything is done for show. But then it's the issue is reversed with sin. In Christianity, it's confess your sins to one another. So don't keep them secret. In Islam, it's cover up all the sins. So think about this. Cover up all your sins. But anything where you're going to look good, make sure everyone sees that. In Christianity, it's, hey, don't do the good stuff for show. But if you do something wrong, you need to confess that. You need to make that known. And it's just like this complete moral reversal, which wouldn't be a terrible concern for Muslims if their prophet hadn't affirmed Jesus, who's the one who said these things that we're supposed to do. So how do you go a few centuries past Jesus and suddenly all of morality and all the foundations of morality have completely reversed? They've switched. They switched to their opposites.
Exactly. And we were listening to a sheikh actually say he was giving like counsel to a Muslim man who found that his wife wasn't actually a virgin when they got married. Like, he found out later on. She ended up confessing to him that she was with men previously, promiscuously. Yeah, and so the sheikh was like, "How did you get that information out of her?" Because he was letting him know, like, it's sinful. If you interrogated her on her sin, it's actually like, and even if you confess your sin, it's sinful. He's like, no, I promise I didn't force it out of her. She just confessed it to me. And he's like, well, in Islam, there's only two categories. There's either the virgin or there's the previously married. And if she wasn't married, then, it's a sin for her to disclose her sin. It's a sin to disclose her sin. So
it's virginity by default.
Yeah.
No one asks anything.
And it's also a sin to confess it. So it's not just like, don't say what your sins are in Islam, but it's actually, this is a sin if you confess it. So this lady, I don't know how many men that she slept with before marriage, but she led her husband to believe that she was a virgin. Then they got married. Some time goes by. He found out by her saying it that she wasn't a virgin when they got married.
The sheikh says, "How did you find this out?" Well, I didn't do much.
Yeah.
I was choking her and beating the crap out of her, and I got the choking part. I got the choking part from Sheikh Uthman. I realized that's how you're supposed to get these ladies in line. So I'm just choking her and beating her and threatening her with a gun like Sheikh Uthman. And then she finally told me, Sheikh. So I didn't, she just kind of spilled out.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the sheikh was like, so he was about to chastise him for getting it out of her, but he was like, he convinced him not to. But the point was that what we took away from that was like, okay, so Christianity, you're encouraged to confess your sins before each other. You're encouraged to do that. And we talk about all the benefits of that, like accountability and all the freeing things that it can do to someone when they, like it's therapeutic, in that way as well. And then in Islam, you're actually told to lie about your sins. Like if you're asked specifically, did you do something? Like, did you do this thing? And we're joking
Wasn't
about
me.
like, being like
The
a
shaggy,
detective.
the
And like
shaggy defense wasn't me.
yeah, the shaggy approach. Yeah,
Wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
Allah
it's
made you think it was me, but it wasn't
yeah,
me.
exactly.
But you see the problem, if a religion legalizes beating and you lie to your husband about something so big and he finds out, do you see the
Yeah.
consequences of the movie?
Yeah.
Wild
So it's
stuff.
crazy. It's crazy.
All right, let's check.
Yeah, it's a
this out.
sin.
Seems like this idea, it was still gaining momentum. It hadn't quite become the dominant view.
Right.
Tababai suggests it may have been more prevalent in certain intellectual
Tababai?
circles,
Okay.
particularly among the Mutazili scholars.
Okay, so we have these whispers of doubt. We have maybe some texts that aren't as reliable as we thought they were. But do we have any evidence of what the official Islamic stance was
Yes.
on Tarif during this time?
Yes, we do. And this is quite remarkable. We have a letter written on behalf of Caliph Harun al-Rashid in 800 AD, inviting the Byzantine emperor to Islam. And in this letter, he actually argues that divine scriptures can't be corrupted.
Wow, so even at this point, the official position is rejecting this idea of Tarif.
Exactly, which makes what happens next even more fascinating.
Okay, all right, lay it on me.
Because as we move into the 9th century, things...
Guys, I'll just pause it very quickly. Those of you who are watching, did you catch that? So you're talking about around the year 800, so 796, you even have a Muslim ruler in his correspondence arguing that no one can corrupt Allah's books, which is exactly what the Quran says.
Yeah.
And so keep in mind, they've been having discussions and debates for a long time by this point, by the time you get to 796 AD. And it's still apparently the dominant position. You can't corrupt Allah's books. What are you talking about? And so, guys, Muslims, what does it take for you to realize that the view that you hold, that you didn't get from the Quran, you didn't get from the Hadith, you got it from a dawah guy, and you got it from your imam, and you got it from your mom and dad, and it completely contradicts Muhammad and Allah. What does it take for you to realize that this is innovation, that you're believing in a false doctrine according to your own religion? Apparently don't care. Weird.
really start to heat up, and the Tarif debate explodes onto the scene.
Okay, I am ready for this. Tell me more.
All right, well, let's save that for next time.
Oh, man. All right, well, listeners, be sure to join us for part 2, where we explore how Tarif goes from this fringe idea to this much more prominent topic of debate within Islam.
It's going to be good.
I can't wait.
Me too.
See you then.
See ya.
Okay, that's creepy with the
Welcome back,
back and forth
everyone.
right there.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So that's part 1. They have 3 parts. They're all in the same video. They just have a little music and stuff in between that I chopped out. So we checked out the first part. We'll watch a little bit of the second part. I don't think we'll get through all of it, but I got a link to the full one. Take a couple super chats real quick, and then we'll watch a bit more. Hey, D Wood, any advice for starting to make videos and responses? Love from the UK. God bless you and your family. Yeah, easy advice. 1, no need to reinvent the wheel. Other people have figured a lot of things out. There are people like me who are kind of on it early on. We had to learn by trial and error, and we had to figure things out on our own because it was new. But now it's not new anymore. There are tons of people who make videos going through all the basics, how to record, how to get good audio, how to set up your video, how to make a thumbnail, how to make titles, all that stuff. Watch some tutorials so you don't have to relearn, so that you don't have to relearn what other people already figured out. You don't have to figure out things that other people figured out. You can learn that from other people. So just pick some of the tutorial channels, training on YouTube. In other words, just look up how to make a good YouTube thumbnail, how to make a good YouTube title, things like that. Apart from that, just start making videos. And yeah, they're not going to be great if you're starting out, but you're going to learn. And so make a video however you can on some topic that you're interested in. And then instead of focusing on not making a video until you know everything and it's perfect, focus on making a video and then making the next one better. So focus on starting wherever you're at and then improving over time, and just keep doing that for a while. That'll be the basic gist. Sup, D? How come Daniel Haktua wasn't instantly canceled when he argued for slavery? Because the Jews are protecting him. The Jews. He's an agent of Mossad to make Islam look as bad as possible. That's why he gets away with all this. It's the best I can come up
we
with.
thought that was interesting that Jake got demonetized and stuff
And
like
Daniel
that.
didn't.
Yeah, we were like, oh,
Maybe you're right.
yeah, it could be something
He's a
there.
Shia Mossad agent.
He does have Jew in his name.
Yeah, he's a plant.
Yep. Apostate of Allah says 2024 was very satisfying. Yes, it was. I mean, it's got me wondering about 2025. Is it going to reverse? Are they going to like launch? Are they going to have this awesome rally next year and fix things? I don't think so. I think 2025 is going to be significantly worse. I think we're witnessing the collapse has started right before our eyes. But anyway, 2024 was very satisfying. I want to thank all the Muslim Dawah dudes for making life easy for ex-Muslims, Christians, and others who work hard to expose Islam. You're the real MVPs. They sure are. Maybe we should give out some awards tomorrow.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Oh, yeah. You know, when Islam is finished as a religion, maybe when we're old, I'm going to miss these days when they were giving us so much material.
Yeah. Let's see. Coffee House Dialogue says, D-Wood, about that deletion wish towards Fuentes regarding his security payments, I probably should not have wished it on him. He's still a traitor. We've said so many things about Nick Fuentes. I don't even know what exactly this is referring to. So his security payments, $13,000 a week, he's saying, for security. Anyway, wild stuff. But yeah, so if you want to wish something for that dude, wish that he comes to his senses and quits being a lunatic. AI is from Shaitan. Shaitan. Yeah, they're going to have to give a fatwa against AI if people start using it to expose the Islamic dilemma and so on.
Yeah, I mean, they have a fatwa on Mickey Mouse, so...
Well, they need a fatwa to put hijab on this lady, too.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Put a burqa on.
Mm-hmm. Yep, she's in trouble. Hey, no, they'll invent their own AI where everyone is automatically putting a burqa.
And the dude...
They have whiteboards and stuff.
And the dude in the beard.
Hey, we should see if we can do that. We come up with an Islam-friendly... We come up with halal AI, and all the women are in burqas, and they only communicate using whiteboards.
I saw someone in the comments say that. That was really funny.
And thanks, Daniel. Daniel will be on with us for a bit tomorrow as well. Let's see. Prison is the best place to decide not to follow Muhammad. Yeah, well, I don't know. Prison's actually a good place for people to learn to follow Muhammad. Not really, but I mean, not really in the sense of you're not really following Muhammad, but it's basically like a gang in prison. It's basically like a gang. It's gang level. And my prediction is that as Islam is exposed more and more, then the only reason to join it will be for gang purposes. Like you join it for your own protection. That's the future of Islam. Global gang. And so
That's pretty much how the Dawah guys operate.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Any updates on Sheikh Ibn 434? Is that his new nickname? Is that his new nickname? Sheikh Ibn 434. Okay, we'll recap that tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. And now we've got his new nickname.
Oh yeah.
David, you can use the Momo and Christmas joke the other day. I made it up. You have to be a bot to believe Islam, 99 names, and truth ain't one. That is, I'm going to use that. Thank you. I asked if he made that up or if as a common joke. Where's AP? Is he okay? Yo, AP. Yeah, AP's fine. I wanted to get Jai and DOC on there because this is kind of their area and it's connected to some other ones we did. And so I wanted to go live earlier so they could jump in. No, AP's fine, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, earlier he said we were going live tonight. I don't know. He's kind of unpredictable, but we're supposed to be. I don't know if he set anything up yet, but he wanted to go live tonight. If not, you'll be seeing him tomorrow. And you said, this is good? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. In Slovakia, we celebrate Name Day for David on December 30th. Happy Name Day for you and me. Hey, that's interesting. So, like I noticed in other countries, some European countries, they don't celebrate your birthday as much as they do your name day, like the day you're named. But this sounds like each name has its own day, and they celebrate. If you have a certain name, they celebrate it on a certain day of the year. That's different. That's interesting. Um, let's see. Danny says ghosts are Jewish. That's true. Can you make videos about disproving Sikhism or Hinduism, please? No, because then I'd have to study those things. So that's better off, guys. We're a body. We're a bunch of individuals. If one person tries to do everything, he's going to do a crap job. So people should generally be doing like a small handful of things, like 2 or 3 things that you focus on. If you spread it out, there are people who have a greater ability to do more and more and more. Me, if I'm doing more than 2 or 3 things, then I'm not going to be very good at it. So probably best for people. As far as Hinduism, I would guess it's people who are over there and who interact with Hindus, who are, in base Christians in India who have discussions with Hindus, then, those should be the Christians and Hindus that people are focusing on as far as their discussions and so on. But no, I'm not going to learn Hinduism to expose Hinduism, because that would require a great deal of time, and not terribly interested in that.
Yeah, there's a channel called Sakshi Apologetics.
Yep.
Sakshi Apologetics. And I'll just write it in the comments here. And yeah, they, like you said, they speak like Hindi, Malayalam, a couple of Indian languages, and they do this in their languages. Debate. They have debates with Hindus and stuff like that. So I don't know about Sikhs, but I'm sure they probably have something on that as well.
Yeah. So again, not saying that these things aren't discussions with other groups, not saying they aren't important. It's just there are people who would be way better at that, a million times better at that than I would be. And so why would I want to do something when other people are going to do a way better job? Thank you for what you do, Grumpy. Thank you, Grumpy Granny. Michelle says, hey, D Wood, guess what you can buy now? Wingaling sweaters? Get one. Hope you're well, and hope you had a fab Christmas. Chat here today, crazy. Hey, Michelle, it's funny when you said Wingaling sweater, you're like, get one. I was like, why would I ever in a million years get a Wingaling sweater? But then I realized that I could have it. I could have like some horrible person in the boom boom room wearing one. You know what I mean? Like the worst person ever. And he could just randomly be wearing a Wingaling sweater before he gets blown up. So in other words, there may be good uses for a Wingaling sweater. Yeah, that might be good. Sheep Squad says, thanks to you, I'm Christian today and left Sikhism. Well, that's cool, because we weren't even trying to address Sikhism.
Praise God.
Praise God.
And keep in mind, because Sheep Squad's the one who asked about exposing Sikhism, and saying, well, yeah, it's not something I think that I would be good at. But notice how it makes sense. It's because Sheep Squad, it comes from a Sikh background. It's an important topic for Sheep Squad here, so again, that makes sense. But those are the people who are going to be most interested in a topic. And it's like for me, I'm actually more interested in atheist objections because that's my background. I became interested in Islam because my best friend was a Muslim. In other words, we kind of pay attention to what's kind of closest to us. And so there would be Christians for whom Hinduism and Sikhism and so on is a bigger deal, because it's more in their face. People tend to focus on what's confronting them, what's confronting their kids and so on, things like that. So yeah, anyway, it's good to hear, Sheep Squad, but yeah, there would be people who would be better. And Jai pointed out Sakshi Apologetics. And last one here. God bless David. As a Christian, I'm on the fence if I can do this. 1, drive through a red traffic light when nobody is around. 2, part 2 below. What's part 2 below?
So some moral dilemmas.
You're on the fence about whether you can drive through a red traffic light when no one is around? Oh, sounds like you could actually be, okay, am I supposed to follow the law even if it's completely irrelevant or something like that? Like you're actually a serious issue?
I remember listening. It's funny that he said that, because I remember listening to, there was a Jewish scholar talking about Maimonides, and that was one of the points that he brought up, was like, Maimonides' relationship to the Torah, like keeping the Torah, like when God says, for example, this particular food is unclean, is it something in that food in itself that's actually unclean? Like is like the pig, like something wrong with it in itself, or are you just doing it because God kind of, it's kind of like a Euthyphro kind of dilemma sort of thing. But and so he brought that up, and you used the example of like a red light. He's like, okay, you're going through like this desert and there's a red light, like do you stop there because the law says to stop there, or can you go because you're not like putting anyone in danger, which is more like the heart of the law, not to so
I would stop because there are cameras at those red lights, and then you'll be holding to court.
That's a good point.
Well, yeah, it depends. Some have them and some don't. Some are out in the middle of nowhere. There's a movie. No, I don't want to talk about the movie. But anyway, there's a movie with it had Brad Pitt in it and stuff. It was something about him going to Mexico, and he's like super tough, criminal type, super tough. Anyway, he gets in. He's like in the middle of a desert, and there's a traffic light there, and this super tough gangster gets to a red light, and he's stopping, and it's a red light, but like you can see all the way in the distance one way and all the way in the distance the other way. And he's like looking like really sheepishly, like, what do I do here? What do I do here? And you're wondering, like, how's this tough guy? How's this tough criminal so worried about a red light? And then eventually you get to the background story. He ran a red light, which is what, and he ran a red light, and like some tougher criminals crashed into him and stuff like this, and he messed them up, and that put him massively in debt, and that got him in all kinds of trouble and so on. But anyway, so you have concerns like that. Something could go horribly wrong. You could get into an accident or something like that. But really, the question you're really asking is just whether you can. Laws are made to protect people and so on. And so what if you're not actually protecting someone? You're actually out in the middle of nowhere. No one's going to possibly get hurt by this. What do I do? Do I actually follow the law? I would just, unless you're in a horrible rush, I'd follow the law to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
If you have an injured person in the car with you and stuff, and you need to get to the person to the hospital, that's a different story.
Yeah, in Christianity in general, it's basically like, as long as the law doesn't contradict something to our faith or doesn't go against God in any way, then yeah, you go by it. But like you said, there's always exceptions. Like if there's an emergency situation or something like that, then it's the spirit of the law,
And Eli, hey Eli, he says, love and miss you, David. Hey Eli, we'll be down there in a couple months. We got that Apologeticon again coming up in a couple months. Hope to see you down there. All right, let's watch a little bit more of this. See what happens. So this is part 2, ladies and gentlemen. This is part 2. They put a dissertation in there, plugged a dissertation into AI. It made a conversation, and so far, we think this is very, very, very accurate. Hope to see this guy's dissertation available in English because it's Persian. But the main idea is you want the information about what the Quran says about the Bible, and information about how Muslim belief unfolded over the centuries and so on. You want that coming from as many different directions as possible. So we want to be sharing that. We hope that other people are sharing it. We hope for more Muslims actually acknowledging this, because there have been Muslims who acknowledge what the Quran says about the Bible, and we can definitely respect that. And you basically want it coming from every direction until Muslims get the point, because it's hard for them. They basically worship their dawah guys who lie to them, and that is difficult to get through. But let's see.
Are you ready for the next chapter?
Yeah.
Because it's where things get really juicy.
You've definitely got me hooked. We left off with those first little whispers of the Tarif idea starting to emerge in the 8th century. So when does it really take off? When does it become like a thing?
Well, that's what Tabatabai calls the emergence phase,
Tabat.
starting in the 9th century, especially during the reign of Caliph al-Mamun. This is when Tarif goes from being these subtle hints to being like a full-blown accusation from Muslims. And get this, it seems like it might have been a reaction to Christians starting to accuse the Quran of being corrupted.
Oh, interesting. So it's like a you said, I said kind of thing in this theological back and forth.
Exactly.
Hey, that's interesting. I'm not familiar with that. So they're saying that when it becomes a real accusation, starts to become more of an issue. It seems to be a response to Christians saying, "Hey, your Quran's a corrupt book," and then Muslims, "No, oh, your book's corrupt."
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, go ahead.
Interestingly, this first caliphate, his name is Al-Ma'mun. He's part of a group called Al-Mu'tazila. The first, big person of that position to say about corruption of the Bible. Muslims say the Mu'tazila are all deviants.
Because they don't believe the Quran's, they don't believe the Quran's uncreated.
So actually, they're all following this deviant group that
Yeah.
say the Quran is corrupt, the Bible is corrupted.
Yeah, and this debate is really interesting here. And one of the points that the Christian brings up during this debate is, he's like, okay, you're accusing us of corrupting our Bible. Let's just kind of like make this make sense. Okay, so you're saying that we're making up a story where you have like 11 out of the 12 apostles like abandoning Jesus at the cross, and they like all of these things, like the Bible talks about the crucifixion being foolishness to those who are perishing, and like he's like, you think we're gonna make it like so hard to believe, or like unbelievable that okay, the first preachers of the resurrection are women? Like you think we're gonna make a story up and just use these details? Like it's not more probable that this is actually what happened, because why would someone make them, like within like the Old Testament as well, like you talk about like the kings of Israel, and like you have the kings of Israel being far worse, like in terms of like counting them up, than there are good kings. And it's like, if it's all made up, why would they make up these like, okay, constantly falling short, constantly sinning? And that was the point that he was making in the debate.
When I read the Old Testament for the first time as an ex-Muslimah, I said, there's no way the Jews wrote this. It's all about how they fell away or corrupted. They didn't make it up. They didn't take away stuff because it's all embarrassing to them. Their apostasy, their wars against God, their rebellion in the wilderness, they're gone to Babylon against their will, as punishments from God. It's all about God rebuking them for the most part.
But Muslims like, oh, you guys made that up.
I'm thinking, no, they didn't. It doesn't make them look good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the point he was making. One of the points that he was making.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This period also sees this big rise in arguments based on reason. People are relying less on just scripture and more on logic and philosophy.
Yeah, that makes sense. There was so much intellectual and philosophical stuff happening in the Islamic world at that time.
Right. And this shift toward reason actually changes how people understand Tarif. So there's this important figure from this time, Theodore Abu-Qura, a Christian theologian writing in the early 9th century. Early on, he doesn't really even bother defending whether the Bible is authentic or not.
Because no one was really challenging it.
Exactly. It wasn't a big deal. But when Al-Mamun comes to power, things change, like big time. During one such debate in Al-Mamun's court, a Muslim scholar accuses Abu-Qura of Tarif.
But wasn't that becoming pretty common by this point?
Yes. But here's the catch. The Muslim scholar was using Tarif in the sense of misinterpretation or distortion of meaning, which was how the word was commonly understood in Arabic at that time. Mm-hmm. However, Abu-Qura, whose native language was Syriac, understood Tarif in its Syriac sense, which means to mix or to mingle.
Ah, so a classic case of lost in translation, like those hilarious cross-cultural mishaps you see in movies.
Exactly. This misunderstanding leads to a pretty heated exchange, with Abu-Qura firing back, accusing the Muslims of Tarif by adding things to their scripture that were clearly not divine revelation.
Wow, so he flips the accusation back on them, but using Tarif in that newer sense of textual alteration.
Precisely. And what's...
Everyone catch that? So you've got the Muslim, he's accusing this guy of Tarif using the common Arabic understanding of you're corrupting something, but the guy speaks Syriac, and he's giving it the Syriac meaning where it means to mingle things, and then they start firing objections back and forth, and then he's accusing the Muslim of adding things, mingling.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
Remarkable is that this might be one of the earliest recorded instances of the word Tarif being used in Arabic to mean textual corruption. It's like we're watching the birth of this new understanding of the word, an understanding that would go on to have a huge impact on Islamic thought.
So we've got dueling accusations of tarif, linguistic mix-ups, and the word itself taking on a whole new meaning. Things are getting pretty complex.
Indeed.
That's amazing.
It is. It's a pivotal moment in how people understand tarif. It's like a linguistic turning point.
So we've gone from these little hints to direct accusations, from focusing on people's behavior to the text itself. This emergence phase really solidifies what tarif means.
Yeah, it lays the groundwork for what Tabatabai calls the consolidation phase, which starts in the 11th century. And this is when tarif really becomes widespread.
Ah, this is where Ibn Hazm comes in, right?
Bingo.
Wait, so 11th century Muslims, that's where your idea really becomes popular in Islam. 11th century. After centuries of debates and discussions with Christians about the issue, suddenly it becomes mainstream belief. And you think this is all coming from Allah and Muhammad.
Yeah. And notice the person that is like credited with this idea, Ibn Hazm. Now, we learned a bunch of things about him from Muhammad Hijab, and some of them are really
He's
disturbing.
the most perverted scholar Muslims have in Islam.
Yeah.
Ibn Hazm.
It's crazy.
To the point that Mimi Hijab said, don't follow him on this particular ruling,
Yeah.
which is perverted ruling.
So basically, Ali Dawa, he sat Sneeko down and he was trying to give him some halal game, and basically saying like what's allowed in Islam, like what's halal, like what are you allowed to do in like the dating game in Islam. And he was talking about how Ali Dawa talks about how he's able to he was able to finesse like pictures of girls on Instagram, and Sneeko was all shocked. He's like, whoa, you can do that in Islam? And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna tell you the cheat codes. And so he was saying, so Ali Dawa thought he was like that he was going far with this, and he was saying, there's this one opinion I follow where I can actually see the woman without her veil, and she can wear certain clothes that are revealing like of her curves and stuff. They can be like tight clothing, or I can see her arm or whatever. And so he thought he was being like a little like edgy with that or whatever, like he's going really far. Muhammad Hijab comes in and he says, oh, you guys don't follow Ibn Hazm's opinion on that? He said you could see the girl naked before marriage. Just completely naked. And they based on a hadith where Muhammad said, if you see someone that you might want to marry, find something about them that seduces you, and then that will tell you if you want to marry them or not. And so he interpreted that to mean, well, how would I do that? Seeing her naked, of course. So that's actually an opinion, a Muslim opinion.
Yeah, that's the same Ibn Hazm that's talking about this corruption.
Yeah.
So that actually makes sense. I'm thinking about like Numan Ali Khan, like that was from several years ago, but that was like a sexting scandal. He's like messaging girls back and forth and send me pictures, and he's sending them pictures, and then his defense was, I was basically sexting back and forth with all these different women because I was considering them as marriage partners, something along those lines, and so on. But back then it's like, come on, dude, right? Even now it's still come on, but okay, I can see how you could justify it in Islam. It's like, hey, I gotta see what I'm working with here. I gotta see if I'm gonna be a good match for these ladies, if I'm gonna be pleased with them. So they have to send me all these pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the same Ibn Hazm, the same guy.
Yeah. Who championed this new Bible is corrupted review.
So good to know where all your views come from, Muslims, but this is where your stuff's coming from. Here we go.
Ibn Hazm, who died in 1064 CE, is like the poster child for the Tarif idea. He went through the Bible with a fine-tooth comb, looking for anything that contradicted itself, anything that didn't make sense, any inconsistencies.
So he's using reason and textual analysis to argue that the Bible is corrupted.
Yep, and his work was super influential. After him, the Tarif idea is everywhere in Islamic scholarship, but it's important to remember it still wasn't universally accepted.
So even with Ibn Hazm being so influential, some people still disagreed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Tabatabai points out a bunch of scholars who weren't buying it. One big one is Ibn Khaldun, this famous historian and thinker from the 14th century. He completely rejected Tarif.
Interesting. So even as Tarif becomes more popular, the debate keeps going. That makes sense. What about the Hadith and Tafsir, those other Islamic traditions? Do they support this timeline that Tabatabai has laid out?
They do, and that's what makes his research so convincing.
Hey, it's weird. I'm listening to this AI thing, and occasionally I'll hear a different, like a third voice in the background.
Yeah.
And I
I think
realized
sometimes, yeah.
I'm thinking they change the voices over time, and that it's always like when one person is talking, the other person's giving a little reaction, and it's not the other person's voice; it's a different voice. I'm guessing like they changed the voices over time, but it didn't pick up on the little ones in the background and stuff that are the little just the reactions. Because
Yeah,
it'll supposedly
exactly.
be the girl's voice, but it'll be a different guy's voice. So anyway, it's not a perfect system.
Yeah, sometimes the connotation is like really off too. Like they'll like really exaggerate things, and but yeah, it's they're getting there though.
It's not perfect, ladies and gentlemen, but still interesting. I actually there are some of these charts up here that I'm guessing they're in the dissertation or something like that. But some of these charts, I don't know if they're from a PowerPoint, if they're in, but he's got some interesting charts in here that I wouldn't mind checking out. But they're kind of hard to read in the video, especially one that's about to come up here pretty soon.
Shows that in those very first collections of hadith, the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, there's no mention of tarif at all. It's only later, starting in the 2nd century AH, that's after Hijrah, the Prophet's migration to Medina, and continuing from there, that we see hadith pop up that actually support tarif.
Wow, that fits perfectly with the timeline. What about tafsir? Those are like interpretations of the Quran, right?
Yes. And it's just as interesting. So the earliest tafsir from the 1st and 2nd centuries AH, they're mostly focused on this idea that Jews are hiding the real Torah. They're not saying Jews changed it, just that they're hiding parts of it.
So again, it's about what people are doing, not the text itself.
Exactly. But then as we get to the 3rd and 4th centuries AH, the tafsirs start talking about both hiding and changing the text. It's like this idea gradually gets bigger and more complex over time.
It's amazing how all these different parts of Islamic tradition fit together to support Tabatabai's timeline.
So he
Tabatabais.
proposes this 4-stage framework.
Okay.
Preformative, formative, emergence.
This is what I mean. Even on the original video, you could look as hard as you want. You can't see the stuff over there on the right when he's got like a timeline, but of relevant things. So, but notice that would make like a good poster.
Yeah, I agree. I'll try looking for that. Because like I said, his dissertation is available online, but it's in Farsi. But I wonder. I'm sure the names are like really like the Arabic names, so we'll be able to make it out. But yeah, we'll try looking into that.
Yeah. So that, like, if that were a poster, he should. If he has that information on a poster, he should make that available for sale, because there are people who might want to actually like have that on their walls and stuff to help them learn it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And consolidate.
Or if you had a really good, like, high resolution version, you could kind of scroll around on a screen and point out different stuff. That could be cool too. Anyway.
So we're going to see, how tarif went from practically non-existent in early Islam to, something that was widely accepted a few centuries later.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what were the key turning points?
Yeah. So to understand those turning points, we really have to go back in time.
Okay.
And try to imagine the world that Islam was kind of born into.
Mm-hmm.
It was a world where scripture was like everything.
Right.
Like sacred texts had this huge amount of authority.
Yeah.
You couldn't just ignore them.
So Islam had to find a way to like navigate that.
Right, exactly, yeah. And the way that the Quran does that is really fascinating. It doesn't present itself as something totally new.
Right.
It actually presents itself as a continuation of that scriptural lineage.
Okay.
Kind of like the culmination of all these revelations that had come before.
But how did that?
Mm-hmm. That's the impression you get from reading the Quran, not the impression you get from the Dawah guys, ladies and gentlemen. But take your pick, Muslims. You can decide to go with Allah and Muhammad, or you can decide to go with the Dawah guys. For some reason, whenever that decision pops up, 100% of the time you go with your Dawah guys and not with Allah and Muhammad. It's disturbing. Makes me not trust your religion at all.
Tie into tarif?
Well, because to do that, the Quran had to avoid directly criticizing the existing scriptures.
Right.
Like it had to find a way to coexist with them.
Okay.
To fit into this world that was so focused on scripture. And so then, if we kind of fast forward a bit to the 8th century.
We come to this kind of turning point that's a little unexpected, maybe.
Okay.
This huge debate erupts in the Islamic community about whether or not it's okay to write down the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad.
Right, the hadith.
Yeah.
Okay, but how does a debate about the hadith connect to the Bible
Right.
and tarif?
So it's all about precedent.
Okay.
The people who were against writing down the hadith, they pointed to this text from the Jewish tradition
Okay.
called the Mishnah, which is this compilation of oral law.
Right.
And they basically said
Yeah.
that creating that text alongside the Torah
Yeah.
was like this innovation.
Okay.
Like a human addition to a divine text.
So they weren't saying that the Torah itself was corrupted. They were saying it was wrong to add something new to it.
Exactly. It's a really important distinction.
Okay. Exactly.
So what happens next?
Well, then we get to the 9th century.
Okay.
And this really
Guys, did everyone catch that point about the hadith? That the concern of some Muslim scholars about writing down the hadiths would be like, wait, we've got the Quran. If you're writing something else down, it's like you're adding something. It's like you're adding something. And they drew attention to, wait, Jews had the Torah, but they also had their oral teachings and so on that they eventually put into writing, and it became this additional thing. And so do we think that's okay to have that additional thing in addition to your scripture? If we say no, then how are we going to be writing down hadiths as this additional thing, which would be kind of parallel to let's say the Talmud or something?
powerful intellectual movement called rationalism.
Okay.
It's kind of like the Islamic world's version of the Enlightenment.
Right, right.
And this movement really emphasized reason and logic as the primary ways to understand the world, including religious texts.
So scholars are starting to look at the Bible.
Yeah.
With a more critical eye.
Exactly. And all of this is happening against the backdrop of that earlier suspicion.
Yeah.
That maybe humans had messed with scripture somehow.
Right. It's all starting to come together.
Yeah.
Right. The context, the suspicion, and now this shift.
Right.
In how people are thinking about scripture.
Exactly.
So what happens next?
Well, at this really key moment,
Okay.
something happens that really changes things.
Okay.
Arabic translations of the Bible start to circulate widely.
Yep.
For the first time.
So now Muslim scholars can read the Bible in their own language.
Exactly.
And compare it directly to the Quran.
Right. And what they find is, well, let's just say it raises some questions.
I bet. So this is where the rubber hits the road, right?
Exactly. It's not just theoretical debates anymore.
Right.
It's about what the texts actually say.
Yeah, what do they find?
Well, they're noticing these apparent contradictions with the Quran. Okay. They're seeing variations between different manuscripts of the Bible.
Right.
Things just don't seem to add up the way they expected.
Okay.
And so you get a whole range of responses. Some scholars try to downplay those differences, focus on the commonalities between the texts, try to reconcile the discrepancies.
Makes sense.
But then there are these other scholars, like Ibn Hazm, who take a much bolder approach.
Okay.
They start to use what we call textual criticism, really analyzing the language of the texts, comparing different versions of the manuscripts to argue that the Bible has been corrupted.
Like literally corrupted.
Yeah, like the actual words have been changed.
Wow.
And that's what makes this moment so important.
Right.
This is where that shift starts to happen.
Okay.
It's when the idea of tarif really starts to solidify and becomes like the dominant view within Islamic scholarship.
So it goes from being like this fringe idea to like the mainstream view.
Exactly. It's no longer just about misunderstanding the text.
Right.
It's about the text itself being changed.
Wow. So in just a few centuries, we go from Islam kind of, respectfully engaging with the Torah and the Gospels to this idea that they're corrupted.
Yeah.
And that's like the mainstream view.
Exactly. It's a huge shift.
It really is. And what Tabatabai does so well is he shows us that it wasn't just about like blind faith or dogma.
Right.
It was this complex process driven by these historical events, intellectual trends, and even like political stuff happening within the Islamic world.
Exactly. It's like a detective story, trying to figure out all these different factors that led to this huge shift in thinking.
And that's what makes this deep dive so cool. We've gone through centuries of intellectual debate, seen how this complex idea evolved, and discovered that the history of how Muslims and Christians have interacted is way more nuanced than we might have thought. In our final part, we'll explore what all of this means for you, our listener, and how these debates that started centuries ago still impact us today.
Hey guys,
Yes.
was saying wow about that.
Arabic Bible.
Yeah, that's interesting. So everyone who's watching, um, you can understand fairly easily how, if you start off with the claim that the Torah and the Gospel are the inspired, preserved, authoritative Word of God, that Jews and Christians are still obligated to follow their scriptures. They're not supposed to follow the Quran. They don't need to follow Muhammad. They're supposed to believe Muhammad. They're supposed to believe that Muhammad is a prophet. They're supposed to believe that the Quran is the speech of Allah, but what they're supposed to follow is their own book. And Muslims are supposed to believe the same thing about the Jewish and Christian scriptures. They're supposed to believe in those books, but what you're actually following is the Quran. You follow the book that's revealed to your group in your language. So if you start off with that, how do you get to, no, all these other books have been corrupted? Well, the idea is, hey, over time, Muslims are going to become more and more familiar with what's actually in the book. So in other words, guys, take a 7th century Meccan convert to Islam. He starts off as a pagan, he converts to Islam. Muhammad's saying, hey, did you know I'm in the Jewish and Christian scriptures? Who are you listening to? You're listening to Muhammad. Do you have any clue what's in the Jewish and Christian scriptures? No. Okay, so Muhammad's telling you that there are these prophecies about him in the Jewish and Christian scriptures. You're saying, okay, because you're a Muslim, who do you believe? You believe Muhammad. You run into, let's say you move to Medina and you run into a Jew and you say, hey, is Muhammad in the Torah? And they go, no. Okay, can you read the Torah? No. Do you have a Torah? No. Do you have a Torah in a language you can read it? No. So what's your source of information about the Torah? You have two sources of information. You have what this Jew is telling you, and you have what Muhammad is telling you. Who do you believe? You believe what Muhammad is telling you. So this Jew is saying, hey, Muhammad's not in the Torah. What do you think about him? You think, he must be lying about what's in his book. He must be lying. So I can't trust this guy. This is why we have to subjugate these guys, right? So what happens? Over time, as was just pointed out, over time, they gain more and more access. Just Arabic-speaking Muslims gain more and more access to the Torah and the Gospel as translated into Arabic. In other words, they can start looking at the text for themselves. What happens? Well, they're looking there and they expected, these guys are lying. These guys are lying. But now they're actually looking at the text going, I don't see all this stuff that's supposedly about Muhammad. And so they're pointing out that where this view of the corruption of our scriptures really takes off is when Muslims get easier access to the Torah and the Injil, and they realize this doesn't line up with Islam. What's the explanation? Well, the most obvious explanation is Muhammad had no clue what he's talking about. He's a false prophet. Don't believe him. But you can't believe that because you get your head chopped off. And therefore, what do you have to say? Bible's been corrupted. So when does it actually, guys, when does the idea that the Bible's been corrupted really take off in Islam? It never takes off from reading the Quran. Why? The Quran doesn't say it. Never takes off from looking at what Muhammad and his early companions and the early commentaries say. Doesn't take off from there. Why? Never occurred to them. Only takes off once Muslims find out the Bible doesn't line up with the Quran. What is that? That's the sort of second step of the Islamic dilemma. The Quran confirms the Bible, but the Quran also contradicts the Bible. And so what you'll find historically is you'll have Muslims clinging to each one of these, but when you bring them both together, that's when you get the Islamic dilemma. So you can believe as a Muslim, yes, the Bible lines up with Islam. You can believe that as long as you're not reading the Bible. Or you can actually read the Bible, realize it doesn't agree with Islam, and so you can believe that the Bible must be corrupted, and therefore you have to ignore what the Quran says about the Bible. What you should be doing is realizing what the Quran says about the Bible, that it affirms it, and realizing simultaneously that the Quran does not line up with the Bible. It contradicts it on basic fundamental doctrines. And therefore you put those together and you got the Islamic dilemma, because there's two possibilities. Either we have the inspired, preserved, authoritative word of God, or we don't. If we have the inspired, preserved, authoritative word of God, Islam's false because it contradicts what we have. If we don't have the inspired, preserved, authoritative word of God, Islam is false because Islam affirms our book. And so either way you go, Islam turns out to be false. But you can't acknowledge that And so what do? You have to lie. You have to lie about the text of the Bible. You have to lie about what the Quran says about the Bible. And so you stand on a foundation of lies. Well,
So are you saying that it took those illiterate Bedouins 500 years to crack open the Bible in their own language and find out? They could have avoided all that by just cracking it open when Muhammad made his claims, and they would have all rejected him instead of waiting all that time.
Yeah, and I guess that's an interesting because 7th century Arabia wouldn't have been the most literate population, and even then, having Arabic translations of things, books they're not terribly common back then. If you somehow have a translation of something, doesn't mean there's easy access to that. Most people can't read, and even most people who can read, they don't have access to that book. You might have the only copy of a book in Arabia. People might have to go to you for something. Eventually, you get to where there are more people who can read. There are more educated people. There are more people who can read, and you end up with easier access to books. And according to what we just saw there, and this is why it'd be interesting to get his dissertation in English, is actually seeing what his evidence is for when the Arabic Bibles are becoming people are getting easier access to Arabic Bibles and so on, and showing that this corresponds on the timeline to when the claim about the Bible being corrupted really takes off. That would make perfect sense. So if he has like solid evidence for that, look, here's where we see more and more people have easy access to Arabic translations of the Bible. And then, oh, look, it's the exact same time that they start screaming, your Bible's been corrupted, your Bible's been corrupted. That would be some powerful, powerful stuff there.
Well, I understand that they may not have had easy access to books, but the Quran keeps saying, check the Bible, check the Bible. Mm-hmm. Like in Surah 10, verse 95, if you're in doubt, check the book that's before you.
But even then, that's not assuming that you have Arabic versions of these books. It's like with the Jews and the Torah. He's saying, hey, yeah, bring me the Torah. What are they bringing him? They're not bringing him an Arabic translation of the Torah. They've got the book in their own language. So even if you're talking about Christians and so on, we know that there were some things that have been translated into Arabic and so on, but it probably would have been really common for Christians to still have books that are in Greek or in Syriac or something else. And so I would guess that early Muslims had very little access to what's in the Christian scriptures, apart from asking Christians and saying, hey, what's in your scriptures? In other words, I think that their communication was, at that point, mainly like storytelling. Like, what stories are we hearing from the Christians? Oh, we want to find out something from the Christians. Let's go ask the Christians. If they tell us something and it doesn't line up with us, we'll just assume that they're lying. I'm assuming it's something along those lines. That's why I'd be more interested in like the time frame of when certain text became more available in translation, because I don't know the exact timeline of, like, here's when this was first available in Arabic. Here's when it was actually really easy to come by in Arabic. Here's where it was like really easy to find in Arabic.
Okay.
Sidney Griffith has a book about the Bible in Arabic, and I think like the earliest manuscript we have, it's from like the 9th century, but that's not the same as saying that's the earliest translation.
No, because manuscripts didn't last terribly long back then. They'd fall apart eventually.
Exactly. So we could have had something earlier than that, but that's at least what we have access to today. But yeah, I think what I thought was really interesting about that portion was that, I've heard you say this for years, which is so it's interesting that you have a Muslim scholar coming to the same conclusions that like Christians have been saying for forever. So it's like they can't say, oh, Christians are just saying this because they're, they have like this Christian agenda or Christian bias. Like, no, there's a Muslim scholar coming to the same conclusions, and he's saying exactly what David has been saying for years, which is that once Muslims had access to the Bible, that's when they were like, oh, the Bible is actually corrupt. Before that, they were, promoting it and saying all these things. Oh, Muhammad's there. But once they realized, okay, this is what the Bible says, he's not there, they're like, oh, you guys corrupted it. And so here you have a Muslim scholar saying that same exact point, no influence of like, Christian apologists or anything like that. He's just doing it based off of his own research.
So the blueprint for being a fake prophet is to get to the illiterate person first that hasn't heard anything. You be the first person to tell them. Like, if I wanted to be a fake prophetess, find someone that hasn't heard anything said, and then say, I wasn't in all the scriptures, and then get that person to believe me first. So when he discovers later that I was lying, then he'll say those scriptures must have been changed
with the sword,
which is exactly what Muhammad did.
Yeah, that's the 99-1 rule. The 99-1 rule. If you're speaking to an audience, even if they were literate, as long as they have no way of checking what you're saying, or if they don't even care enough about checking, then you could basically tell them whatever you want, and they're not in a position to refute you. And if you can get, let's say 99% of people are just going to mindlessly agree with you, then eventually you get to that 1% of people who will be like, actually, I went and checked, and that's not going to work. Not going to work. The 99% of the people can shout you down. They can execute you. They can stop you from saying these things. It is an interesting reversal from Christianity. So who's Muhammad talking to? He's talking to a bunch of pagans who have no clue what's in the Bible, what's in the Torah and the Gospel. And he's telling them, I'm in the Torah and the Gospel. Hey, guys, I'm in the Torah and the Gospel. And do they have any clue what's in the Torah and the Gospel? No. Who's Jesus and the early Christians talking to? They're talking to Jews who knew what was in the Torah. And you had all kinds of Jews who reject the claim that Jesus is the Messiah and so on, but they were talking to the best informed people of their time. They didn't run out and get a mob of people who had no clue what's in their scriptures. Go to them first and then get that mob to silence the people who actually knew. They're interacting at the earliest stage. They're interacting with the people who know what's in the scriptures best. Muhammad, different approach. Go with the people who know absolutely nothing about anything. Get a huge mob, turn that mob into a huge army, and then you can silence everyone who disagrees with you. Smart.
Yeah.
Smart if you're an evil, lying, false prophet. All right, take a couple super chat. Guys, I know it's super late for you, so I don't know if you have to cut out. There's a last little section. It's like 3 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and watch it.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Okay, watch that. Take these last couple of super chats, and then we'll watch this ending here. Mises West says, we trust in eyewitness testimonies in the New Testament, but not when sailors from the USS Liberty claim that the attack was intentional. Thoughts? First thing, Mises West, is the main issue with blaming Jews for everything and always going with the interpretation is kind of you're kind of exhibit A, right? What are we talking about here? We're talking about what the Quran says about the Bible, how AI can take someone's doctoral dissertation. This is all really interesting stuff. What are you focused on, and what do you want to change the topic to? Jews. Okay, so even if you're right, I would say, what the heck? What sort of mental health problem do you have that every topic, no matter how interesting, has to turn into whether Jews attacked the USS Liberty, right? You sound like you have a mental problem. So one, I understand there are people who flip out over Jews, and that makes me kind of suspicious when they're the ones who are giving me awesome evidence for why you can't, we need to consider Jews our supreme enemies. It's this weird obsession. But two, you can actually believe you had people on the USS Liberty saying, "What are you talking about? They flew right over us. They knew what kind of ship we were." Okay, you can believe that they believe that, right? You believe, wait, the plane flew right over me. How are they going to not know that I'm an American ship here? You can believe that and still think that they're wrong, or still think it's not enough. It's not enough to say that this was intentional, or enough to say even if it was intentional, it's a bunch of people from over 50 years ago. Why would I care terribly about? There's all sorts of things involved. So in other words, I can sit here, look at all the evidence, and not just go with the little piece that confirms my suspicions about Jews. I can actually look at all of that. The Jews said, I forget what the number was, but they said, hey, we just started a war. Please, everyone else, keep your ships 100 miles away from this area, because if a ship enters that area, we're going to assume it's an Egyptian ship. And then what happens? the U.S. sends a spy vessel into that area. They send a message saying, hey, we're sending a spy vessel in there. And then there's conflicting reports about whether this got lost or that's the main issue. Did this get through to everyone? Keep in mind, you're talking about the 1960s. Did this information get through to everyone so that they knew that this was a U.S. ship? Or, as they've claimed, did they think it's an Egyptian ship because they said any ship getting anywhere near here, we're going to attack it because it's an Egyptian ship. We've warned everyone to stay out of here. The U.S. sent a ship in anyway, spy ship. So what would I conclude? I'd be inclined to give people the benefit of the doubt. They're saying they didn't know. As soon as they clearly found out it was an American ship, what did they do? They sent in rescue ships. And they paid millions of dollars in restitution and so on. So why are they doing this? Hey, let's attack the ship and then let's offer millions of dollars in restitution and so on. Could it be deliberate? Yes, it could. Could these guys on the ship have seen these guys and just seen their eyes as they're flying over and just realize, oh, this guy definitely knows that I'm an American ship? Yeah, what am I supposed to do with this, man? I'm not there. I've got conflicting reports. Multiple organizations investigating concluded it was just a big mess and they didn't know. What am I supposed to do? What do you want me to do? You want me to go, oh, guy on ship said this. He said they flew right over. They knew. Therefore, Jews, ultimate enemies. We must destroy Jews. We must destroy Israel. I don't even know what to do, guy. But go watch some more Candace Owens.
Yeah. Go ahead.
He says we trust in eyewitness testimonies in the New Testament. That's the only thing available. What do you expect? Video evidence from the first century? You expect them streaming their testimonies to you via YouTube from that time? That's the only thing we have. Yep. And it's multiple eyewitnesses that all corroborate. It's not comparable. So I think that's a bit silly to make that comparison.
Yeah. Now, with that said, if I were, I get being, because you do have conflicting reports. I understand saying, this guy's right there on the ship and he says they flew right over me. And so there's no way they did not know who I was. I get that. And I can even get saying, okay, this guy says this, therefore all these people saying that the message was not communicated rapidly enough to get back that this is an American ship and so on. I get saying, you know what, I trust this more than I trust all of that. What I don't get is saying, oh, it's so obvious that there's no way anyone could ever interpret it any other way. And we have to just understand that the Jews are always trying to randomly attack us in ways that make absolutely no sense.
Exactly.
Let's see. Would you ever consider coming to Chicago? No, it's a horrible city. No, I've been to Chicago. I've been to Chicago numerous times. There's nothing there.
Did you get shot at?
No, there are actually nice areas of Chicago.
Yeah. South Chicago, South side, so it's pretty rough.
Yeah. Inspiring Philosophy says, stop streaming when I'm about to stream. How dare you meet me outside for a battle at your mama? So apparently Inspiring Philosophy is going live, everyone. If you want to check something out afterwards, you can check that out. Seen the news, Wes Huff will be on Joe Rogan. Was that you guys who were telling me about that right beforehand?
Yeah. Just before.
Yep.
He's going places now.
Yeah, praise God. I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, Carlson will have a defendant number 3.
Yeah.
That will be Joe Rogan, defendant number 3.
and hats off to Joe Rogan for getting people from different kinds of views. And what's cool is he'll actually sit there and listen. He'll get an atheist on there and listen to the atheist, and he'll get a Christian on there and listen to the Christian. And he understands this is it's not about him, it's about the audience being hearing basically different cases from different perspectives and so on, and he's not trying to control what people hear and say, I'm only giving you access to my view and I will only expose you to criticisms of my opponent's views, but not my actual, other people's views and so on. Is cool. And I think that's why that helps you with a kind of trust that people trust that you're not trying to control what they hear and so on. And it makes them think, I trust this person, whereas I don't trust, some news network or something like that. So hats off to him, and hope Wes Huff does a bang up job, but we'll definitely want to check that out.
For sure.
And this is part 2 from earlier with the, what do I do about a traffic light? Part
Oh,
two,
yeah.
how about download childhood favorite media that hasn't been sold in over 20 years and the company makes no more money off, but by law would be considered still illegally downloading the media? You're asking the wrong person. I don't know if Jai and DOC are more informed about this. My only I wouldn't really have a problem either way at let's say a traffic light or something like this. Or you're downloading something, they don't get any more money off it, so it's technically illegal, but like 0 people are actually being harmed and so on. So I could see it going either way. I could see you say, you know what, I'm going to honor the law no matter what. Or you could say, in this case, the law has it's a technical issue. There's no actual moral issue involved here. I could see it going either way. What I would say is, if this is something that is concerning you and bothering you, then you might need to not do that, because you might, given what's going on here, it looks like you might be the sort of person who, if you thought, okay, it's okay to download, and you went and downloaded it anyway, it's going to bother you, right? Like, was I supposed to do that? Am I in trouble now? So in those kinds of situations, it might be better to be on the safe side. I'm saying this because of the Bible. When the Apostle Paul is talking about, it says, hey, some people consider one day special, other people consider every day alike. Let each person be convinced in his own mind. In other words, and when he's talking about eating certain foods and stuff, and some people thinking it's wrong to eat those foods and other people thinking it's fine and so on, the Apostle Paul says, well, if I'm with someone who's going to be bothered by this, I'm not going to do it because it bothers that person. So you do have to be concerned about your conscience and so on. And so if someone were to go through a red light in the middle of nowhere that is affecting no one and it doesn't bother them, I wouldn't care much. And if someone said this would really bother them if they ran a red light, then I would say, okay, don't run the red light. You guys have any thoughts on that? That's about the extent of my input.
It makes no sense, because if there is a legal way to download it, then surely the company would be making money. I mean, the questions are endless. I think you should concern yourself with bigger things, have bigger fish to fry in life. That's my opinion. I don't know about Joe.
Yeah, I think 1 Corinthians 8, 10, Romans 14, like what David was saying, like if your conscience is conflicted about it, if you think that this is sin, then don't do it. I mean, we could even come up with arguments and say, oh, this is why you could do it, and it's fine. But if your conscience still gets to you because of it, then you don't do it. It's really this is something that it's more of like a conscience thing. I mean, maybe if you felt like, oh, well, this company's not accepting money anymore, but you can just maybe donate that money to like a charity or something, or give it to a church or something like that. I don't know, if whatever. But yeah, I think it's maybe just like the moral question, like a philosophical kind of thing, more than the actual issue. I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, those are our thoughts, Kitsune. No, not a real decisive answer, and guess what? There wasn't a terribly decisive answer in the Bible for certain issues. There were sort of issues where the Apostle Paul understood you can actually be on either side of this issue. Just make sure that you're not going against what you believe. And you sound like a person who might be bothered by this sort of thing. And so the biblical advice for you would be don't go against your conscience if your conscience is telling you this is wrong.
Yeah, stay away. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Goat Hub says, this guy sounds like what Mike Winger bases his voice changer on. Yeah, he does sound a little bit like that, as far as the voice in the AI. Also, it kind of reminds me of James from Modern Day Debate, the AI voice guy there. But yeah, that Mike Winger definitely does some tweaking to his voice because he sounds like really, really bad in real life. For 2025, besides having the term Dawagandist, can we introduce a new term, Bidagandists, for those who claim Bible corruption? How does it sound? Bidagandist.
Bidagandist. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
It could potentially catch on. Yeah.
Yeah, Bidagandist.
It's okay, but if we've already got Dawagandist, we might want another word. Like Bida something else.
Bida Wars. Like Apostasy Wars.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah, we'll have to we'll have to explore that Abu Ahruf, figuring out if there's because we want to press the issue, right? Because Muslims are actually following a ton of innovation. They're following tons of stuff that came along long after anyone had authority to give them any religious doctrines. And they believe all this stuff, even if it contradicts what Allah and Muhammad say, which means they're not following Muhammad and the Quran. They're very frequently doing the opposite of what's in what comes from Muhammad and the Quran. And they see no problem because it's all they're exposed to. So we actually have to come up with ways of showing them what they're doing, because they're not going to hear it from their leaders.
Sorry. How about Abu Bidah or for a dude and Bidah for a girl?
Wait, what's
Did they
that?
do that? Abu Bidah, the father of Bidah,
Yeah.
and Bidah, the mother of Bidah, for
Uh-huh.
if it's a girl.
Sheikh Ibn
We'll have to
Bidah.
Ibn
Sheikh Ibn
Ibn
Bidah.
Bidah. Yeah.
Hey, yeah. We can start. Yeah, we can start all of those. Matter of fact, if it's some like Dawa guy who comes up with some new view or something like this, we can call him Abu Bidah, and then all his followers we can call those guys Ibn Bidah and so on. Yeah, we'll come up with a bunch of variations of that. We'll see what sticks. Because
The Bidah boys.
Bidah boys.
Bidah boys. There we go. I like Bidah boys. Or if you're talking about one person, Bidah boy. I think that's my favorite so far. Bidah boys. The Bidah boys.
The boys.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The chat will come up with something hilarious. We'll just give it
Bidah
time.
boys. All the Bidah boys. All right, let's go ahead and now watch this last little section here. It's only 3 minutes long, but this is the conclusion.
Stay with us. All right, so we've gone through all this history. We've seen how the Tarif idea developed in Islamic thought, from not even being mentioned in the earliest days to being this big idea that a lot of people believed, but not everyone in later centuries.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, right? And it just shows you how much religious ideas can change and evolve over time. Like, they're not static. They're always being influenced by history and what's going on in these big theological debates.
For sure. But let's bring it home for our listeners, Why should they care about this centuries-old debate about whether the Bible's authentic or not? How does it affect us today?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because, believe it or not, this whole debate still affects how Muslims and Christians interact today. Like, if we understand the history of Tarif, it can give us some clues about the tensions that exist between these two faith communities.
So this isn't just ancient history. It has real-world implications.
Oh, absolutely. It helps explain stuff like why people interpret scripture so differently, or why they approach interfaith dialogue in different ways. It can even help us understand some of the prejudices that come from these different points of view.
It's a reminder that these are complex issues, right? There are no easy answers.
Nope, not at all. And that's why scholarship like Tabatabai is so important. It helps us get past stereotypes and assumptions to really dig into the nuances of history and thought and to approach these conversations with more understanding,
Yeah.
with more empathy.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So, knowing that this debate has been going on for centuries and still is today, how do you think it's shaped Muslim-Christian relations?
I do have to say, for Muslims who are watching, if you're still going to want to go with, you're just going to want to blindly follow your Dawa guy when he tells you things, even though that Dawa guy has been lying to you your entire life. I already guarantee it. Go through his claims. I bet you 10 years ago he was telling perfect preservation right down to the letter, dot for dot, letter for letter. And he was telling you about the scientific miracles. Ask the same Dawa guy about those arguments now. They were lies. And what's amazing is you just keep going back to the same liars over and over again. It doesn't matter what they do. They can fake a hate crime against themselves. If Jussie Smollett fakes a hate crime against himself, the whole world says, whoa, we can't trust this guy. If your Dawa guy commits a fake hate crime against himself, you rally around him even more, no matter how obvious it is. So you guys actually, it's on the level of worship. You worship, not according to me, according to your own prophet. Your reverence for your Dawa guys is on the level of worship. But what they're talking about right now is, hey, at the very least, if after watching this, it should be, maybe the issue is a bit more complicated than I realized. Because what do you believe? What do you believe if you're a Muslim who always mindlessly goes with the Dawa guys? You believe, yes, Muhammad came along and he said, hey, yeah, Jews and Christians, Jews and Christians, your books have been corrupted. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent the beloved Quran to correct all the errors that have been introduced into your books over the centuries. That's what you think happened in the 7th century. And you think it just carried on down to the present. Not what happened at all. And so at the very least, understand it was a more complicated. Even if you still believe the Bible's been corrupted and okay, at least understand it's a significantly more complicated picture than what you've been taught. And then ask yourself why no one tells you the truth and that you have to come to Christian channels to find this stuff out.
There's no question it's created obstacles. I mean, if one community believes the other's holy book is messed up, that's bound to breed some suspicion, some distrust, and make people less willing to really talk to each other.
Not really. I believe the Quran's all messed up. That doesn't stop me from talking. So here's where they're saying something I actually am not entirely convinced with. But
Yeah, it's like a wall goes up between them.
Exactly. But at the same time, I think this history also gives us a chance. Like, if we acknowledge how complicated this debate is, if we recognize that there have always been different opinions within Islam about the Bible, then maybe we can create some space for more respectful and nuanced conversations.
So we need to move beyond this black and white thinking to really bridge that gap.
100%. It's about seeing the gray areas, the different perspectives, and coming to the table willing to learn from each other and try to understand.
That's such an important message. Tabatabai, in his conclusion, emphasizes that even though Tarif became a widespread idea, it was never universally accepted, right?
Yeah.
There were always people who disagreed, and that's so important.
and it's important to note there are even Muslims today. So that's an important point. Like he's saying, hey, even though this became eventually over time, developed gradually, and then eventually became dominant position, there have always been people who challenged it, even after it became dominant. And there are even Muslim scholars in the world today who acknowledge, no, the Quran actually affirms the Bible. It actually does. There are Muslims who are recognizing what the Quran says about the Bible. So that's an important point in the last few seconds here.
To remember.
It is. It reminds us that there's never just one viewpoint within any religion. There's always room for debate, different interpretations, different perspectives.
Well, folks, that's our deep dive for today. We've explored this fascinating history of the Tarif idea in Islam, busted some myths, and I hope we've all gained a new appreciation for how complex religious thought is and how important it is to have these interfaith dialogues, even, and maybe especially, when things are tough. Keep thinking, keep learning, and keep those brains buzzing.
And never stop.
All right, guys. So that's the end of the video. There is a link. You might need to refresh because I added it after we started, but added the link to the video. If you wanted to watch that on your own, there's some important stuff there, guys. And there's material in there that is new information to me. So good stuff, especially if you wanted to focus on one little issue and share that. That's good stuff. So the link to that video is in the description box. Probably want to share that with your Muslim friends. Ask them about it. Say, hey, look, a guy did his doctoral dissertation. Here's the AI version. What do you think? What do you think? And share that with your Muslim friends. Very important to learn a couple of Quran verses. Ask your Muslim friends about those Quran verses. These are good times, ladies and gentlemen. We want 2025 to be the ultimate year of the Islamic dilemma. We want to get that across to everyone in 2025. We want to make sure everyone knows what the Quran says about the Bible. Seal the Prophet said, started watching The Chosen. Any thoughts? No, because I've never seen The Chosen. You guys seen The Chosen?
So I started watching, like I think it was season 1, and I started seeing things in there that wasn't exactly accurate. They'll add things in here and there. They definitely have, they make. Like like when it comes to like healing, is healing for today or not, or things like positions like that, they make their kind of stance like a little you can see some sort of biases in there. And then I think just like there's a lot of issues that I've seen with it. I don't have like off the top of my head like a number of them, but I've seen a bunch of Christian channels kind of break down some of the major issues that they have with The Chosen.
I wanted to, so I've never seen it. In fact, for a while, I didn't even know what it was when people are asking me for feedback. For some reason, I thought it was like a Left Behind type thing. Like it was an end times. I don't know where I got that idea, but I thought that's what it was for a while. And then it's like, oh no, that's not what it is at all. But anyway, I was, hey, any Muslims watching? For a while, I've wanted to like sit down with like one or two Muslims and like one or two atheists and binge watch the entire series and then give our reactions on that sort of thing. So if any Muslims who are watching who are like semi-friendly and don't want to chop my head off or something like that, you want to meet up sometime and then like binge watch the entire series over like 3 days and then share our reactions, let me know. Let me know. I think that would be fun. Because other than that, I'm not big on just like watching shows and stuff. I normally, especially if it's like a bunch of episodes. Anyway,
I remember one scene. I think the guy who plays Peter is he's like this Israeli guy, a guy, and I I think like they have one scene where he like I forget the exact. I think he's in the house with like his mother-in-law and things like that. And anyway, he leaves the house. He's all angry and he uses like a curse word that like in Hebrew, it's like an Arabic loan word, curse word kind of thing. And it's like, you don't really catch it unless you like know it. But I was like, I heard that and I was like, I had to rewind it like 3 times. I was, did he just say what I think he said? And he basically said like the F word, like in like a Israeli kind of way.
They made Peter say the F word?
Yeah, it was
Just be careful watching
yeah, be
it.
careful watching it. Yeah. And there's little other things that are
you'll have people watching that going, hey, I just learned some new awesome Aramaic stuff. Let me go out and share this.
Yeah.
That's a tahrif or what? Or
Oh,
what's
yeah.
in the New Testament?
Yeah.
Funny stuff.
Yeah, and they have like some like Mormon stuff as well. I don't know. Like I said, only watched like the first like season, maybe a little bit of season 2, but it was
Did they give Peter 4 wives?
no.
Hey, say what you want about those Mormons. What is their comedy troupe called? Studio C or something like that? Those guys crack me up, man. They actually have a Mormon comedy YouTube channel, but they're legitimately funny.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't think Mormons would be funny.
I wouldn't either. You never saw it with like their soccer one where the guy keeps getting kicked right in the face with a soccer ball?
No, I didn't see it. No.
They're right up there with I don't know, they're right up. They're like Saturday Night Live level. It's pretty, which I would not have, because Saturday Night Live, they have like professional comedy writers and they spend millions of dollars on it. Whereas Studio C, I think it's like associated with a university like Brigham Young University. It's just understood, hey, you get here, if you're interested in this, then we're going to do comedy skits and stuff like that. But it's actually they're funny. You heard it here, folks. Mormons are funny. And I'm not just saying, hey, their beliefs are funny. I'm saying they actually have some good senses of humor and make some funny skits sometimes. Let's see, Mises, so he's the one who asked about the USS Liberty. Says, I've been watching your videos since 2021, David, and also read Nabil's book. The USS Liberty is just a sensitive topic for me because my grandpa and brother are in the Navy, and breaks my heart that 30 sailors lost their lives. Yeah, my dad was in the Navy too. It's not going to change my view. It's not going to make me think, oh, therefore Jews are trying to kill the U.S. Navy. And therefore,
all the other. Yeah, sorry.
Oh no, I was just pointing. If you were going to say, I don't know what you were going to say. All the other, but I mean, were you going to say?
Like think about all the other opportunities that they could have had if they really wanted to just like kill like the, USS, like Navy ships or Americans in general. Think of all the opportunities that they could have done this, and they just no one. Like it's a tragedy, when anyone dies, but it's just like they could have like done so much more if they wanted to, right? Like if that's what their goal was.
Yeah, and it's a situation, Mises. They're called friendly fire attacks. They happen a lot. They happen a lot in wars. People, you have guys with different levels of training. You have guys with people with different amounts of information, and bad things happen. So guess what? There were multiple friendly fire attacks in that war. I don't mean I don't mean them attacking a U.S. ship. I mean them attacking their own fellow Jews, their own fellow Israelis. You have Israeli soldiers killing Israelis, right? That happens. Even in the most recent war, even in the war that's going on right now, you've had instances where hostages are coming out and they get killed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's the thing. If I hear that some IDF soldiers fired on some hostages who are coming out, I'm going to have to see some really good evidence, because I'm going to think that's friendly fire, because those kinds of things happen a lot. You have instances where the United States tries to bomb someone, they actually end up blowing up someone's embassy or something like that. What do they say? It's like, guys, we thought it was something else. Those sort of things, those kinds of things, they happen. And so if you say, wait a minute, Israel warned anyone coming within 100 miles of this, we're in a war. We're going to assume it's an Egyptian ship, and then the U.S. sends a spy ship up in there, and then it gets attacked, and then they instantly start trying to help it, and then they pay millions of dollars in restitution to the families and so on afterwards. If you look at all that and you just say, nope, the Jews are out to get us, and they just took that opportunity to kill a bunch of Americans, I say, okay, I can't stop you from coming to that conclusion. Please don't expect everyone else to say, oh, you see, this is what Jews do. This is what Jews do.
Right.
That's kind of the issue for me. Like, can you conceive of someone saying, I'm not buying that it was deliberate. I'm just not buying it. What you have, Mises, is an issue where the more hostile, the more negative your perception of a group is, the more inclined you'll be to believe something like that is deliberate. Like we saw this very recently. You have a guy who claimed to be an ex-Muslim atheist, and for years was posting as an ex-Muslim atheist, and then he rams a car into a Christmas market, and kind of depending on your view of Muslims, that seems to affect whether you believe this guy's actually a secret Muslim who was practicing taqiyya and pretending to be an ex-Muslim just so he could launch his Christmas attack 18 years later. But you do have, in fact, I did a poll. That's the dominant view of among people who are critical of Islam. The dominant view is this guy is an undercover Muslim. He's an undercover jihadi.
Yeah.
Me and AP looked at that, and we think the guy is an ex-Muslim is an ex-Muslim atheist with mental problems. That's what he sounds like to us. So in other words, we're not just going to say, hey, we really, really don't like the group that this guy comes from. Therefore, we're going to say that we're looking at all the evidence. And guess what? There are things that really, really fit well with the theory that this guy's an undercover jihadi who's practicing taqiyya and so on. Namely, attacked a Christmas market. Sounds like a pretty jihadi thing to do. We know there are people who pretend to be ex-Muslim, so that's a thing that actually exists. So there are things that you can point to. What do we do? We're kind of looking at the big picture, saying, yeah, that makes sense of the theory that he's an undercover Muslim. This makes sense of given the theory that he's an undercover Muslim. This other stuff doesn't really fit very well with the theory. It's kind of the same situation here. You can have this fits well with the idea that, nope, it was Israel attacking a U.S. ship deliberately. This could fit with that. We're looking at kind of the big picture, and it kind of seems like it was a friendly fire, and it was an accident, and that's why they apologized instantly and started trying to help and started paying restitution and so on. So anyway, that's what were you saying, Jai?
Yeah, wasn't there, another situation where I think it was it could have been in the UK, I can't remember, but there was like a guy from Syria who was claiming to be an ex-Muslim, remember? And then he ended up doing some like terrorist attacks, and obviously, I don't know if it was in the UK, I don't remember exactly, maybe does that ring any bells?
That has happened, and to be clear, yeah. there are people, and this is why I said I don't think you're insane if you think this guy's just an undercover. He's an undercover Muslim who was just deceiving everyone all along. It does happen. You will have people who, if you want to get out of Saudi Arabia, and you're a Muslim and you want to get it, especially even if you're a jihadi, it's a good idea to say, you know what, I'm a Christian and they're gonna kill me if they find out I'm a Christian here. So can you let me out? That is a way to go about it. So that is a thing. But this is what I'm talking about, guys. It's like looking at all the evidence. I went through hundreds of this guy's tweets, and this guy's been blasting away at Islam for like above and beyond anything you would need to convince people that you're an ex-Muslim. He's gone way, way beyond that. I mean, he's been blasting away constantly trying to lead people away from Islam. He's messaging people with all these attacks on Islam, like constantly for years. And then when he's tried for years to get along with other ex-Muslims, and they all conclude that the guy's nuts. Everyone's like, something is really off about that. We don't want anything to do with this guy. He sounds like he's nuts. So if he's actually perfectly sane and plotting jihad and trying to get in with the ex-Muslim, why does he constantly sound like he's got mental problems? Right. So anyway, it's those kinds of issues where it's like, okay, I understand why you think crash into a Christmas market, Muslim. I understand why you think that. Looking at all this other stuff, got good reasons for thinking the guy's mental, good reasons for thinking the guy really, really didn't like Muhammad. And so you put it all together and it's like, okay, I'm not convinced by the theory that he's actually a closet Muslim who's planning this, for some time or something. Anyway, that's just the idea that, guys, there are just situations where you have a ton of available evidence. You can zero in on the evidence that confirms your view, especially if you have a negative view of a group. And you can say, oh, right, yeah, that's the group that would do this. And so I would just encourage you to, if you want to know what happened in an actual situation, I would just encourage you to look at all the evidence. And keep in mind, you can look at all the evidence and still conclude something different from me, because we're different people and we might be interpreting things very differently. That sort of thing can happen. And I would say that's the situation with that Christmas market attack. Me and AP, when we were live, there are like 6 or 7 views, and they would all be defensible here. And we do not consider any one of those insane. We don't consider you a lunatic for coming to that conclusion. Just like if you conclude that the U.S. Liberty attack was deliberate, I don't think you're insane. I just think you're looking at you're just seeing things a little bit differently. There are other areas where if you conclude something, I think, okay, you're nuts. You're absolutely nuts. But yeah. So anyway, it's just a rough issue, and I would just encourage everyone not to. Agree. Yeah, just try to be as balanced as you can. It could be difficult.
I just know that his mental illness didn't make him go attack a mosque. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Given his obvious hatred to Islam, then that mental illness didn't make him focus on the other group. Yeah. And I just wonder why.
Yeah, that would weigh in favor, because again, who did he attack? Christmas market. The reason that is a historic Islamic kind of attack is because there are Muslims who are okay with collateral damage involving other Muslims. Like if you want to attack the World Trade Center or something like that, they understand, okay, there could be Muslims who are caught up in that too. And okay, that's not who I'm targeting, so it's collateral damage, and that's fine. There are other Muslims who don't want any collateral damage as far as Muslims. And so those kinds of people attack targets where you're not going to have any sincere Muslims. And so who do they attack? They attack an Ariana Grande concert or some other concert. That's why you have lots of concert attacks, or they attack something like a Christmas market. You're going to have devout Muslims at a Christmas market and so on. And so that fits in really well. But the thing is, this guy's been posting for a long time. This is where the mental health issue comes in. According to his post, he believed that the German government was conspiring with an organization that claims to support ex-Muslims, but is actually turning ex-Muslim women it's actually a sex trafficking scandal. And so they're telling ex-Muslim women, come from Saudi Arabia, come from the Middle East, come and we'll help you, but they're actually turning them into prostitutes. And the German government is conspiring with them to cover up what's going on. So this guy believes that all this is going on. The German government is conspiring with people to turn ex-Muslim women into prostitutes. And so what he said was, he says, I'm blaming the German police, and I'm blaming all the people who keep these guys in power. And so that was his defense of going after just random people. Mm-hmm. So you could say there are two main conclusions. Well, I guess there would be 3. One, there is actually a conspiracy. of the German police working with an ex-Muslim organization to turn ex-Muslims into prostitutes. So that would be one. Then there would be the idea that he's making this up when he's actually a jihadi. If so, I have no idea why he was saying all this stuff. If you're a jihadi, then you probably want to be... You don't want to do a terrorist attack and people don't understand what you're trying to terrorize them about. I mean, it seems like you'd want to be clear. But anyway, so one is that he was just making all that stuff up. And then the third possibility is that he's actually like delusional and mental. And I've been around enough delusional mental people to think he seemed pretty authentic in that. And I'm saying that as someone who has had delusional thinking in my life. All of 10th grade, ladies and gentlemen, I thought that I controlled the weather. And there were other times when I thought things that are complete nonsense. When you are in the midst of a delusion, it seems completely obvious and true to you, even though it would make no sense to anyone around you. And if you explained it to anyone around you and they didn't get it, you would think that person is either insanely stupid, like, how do you not see this? It's so obvious and clear. Or you would think this person's actually part of a plot against you, actually conspiring against you. And I did, so this was after 12th grade, I actually thought that I was part of an experiment. This didn't last. It wasn't like long periods of time. It was like short periods of time. But I would think that everyone's conspiring against me and that I'm part of an experiment and so on. And so I understand thinking there's this conspiracy and this plot. I want to actually go do something and get violent about it. I understand people can have like really, really crazy ideas and take them completely seriously and be willing to do massive damage over them. And so anyway, but I understand that's just me because I have a different perspective from other people. And so.
No, it's fascinating.
It
really is.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a bunch of different ways you can look at that. Or did he like repent, quote unquote, become a Muslim seeker? It's like
that's another possibility.
Options.
Yeah, that's like one of the 6 or 7 different options. But yeah, there are tons of different ways. And guys, and I'm saying like some of the people like Brother Rashid and Robert Spencer, they believe that this guy was a Muslim carrying out a jihad attack. So it's not. I'm obviously definitely right here. And matter of fact, that's why I brought this up, was that different people can look at the exact same evidence and come to very different conclusions. And on the issue of Jews, there's just this weird obsession with, it could be something that happened 50, 60, 70 years ago, whatever. And they think there's something, the people who are, look what happened, they think you must be mental or something like this if you're not seeing if you're not seeing the Jewish conspiracy, even though you're looking at the same evidence. But guys, get it through your heads. Different people can look at the exact same evidence and come to different conclusions. That's a fact. Right. Shout out to Nisanatic for gifting 20 Apologetics Roadshow memberships. If you received one of those, hope you thank Nisanatic for giving you those. And let's see, these last couple super chats here. Okay, you can have logic and facts, but does your religion tell you how to wipe yourself? How would I know to buy an odd number of stones? We were just goofing off in that show, and then Sal made a song about it. But I'm thinking it's actually, I want to make a little video about that, just pointing that out. Like, you have all these hadiths. Make sure you wipe with an odd number of stones, odd number. And then you have all these hadiths that will attach that to all these odd numbers. You have to walk around the Kaaba an odd number of times and this and this and that. And then all of a sudden you have a hadith saying that the reason for all the odd numbers is because Allah is odd and he likes odd numbers. And that's just one of those areas where I know 99.999% of Muslims will have never heard that before as far as the explanation for the odd number of stones. And I bet once they hear that, there's going to be, seriously? Are you guys serious? Is that the real reason we have to wipe with an odd number? We're supposed to wipe with an odd number of stones? Is it because Allah is odd? He's an odd number because he's 1, and therefore he wants me to wipe with an odd number like 5? That's one of those areas where you would expect some Muslims to go, does that really make a lot of sense, or does that sound stupid? Let's see. There's a papyrus, 4th to 5th century, found by Gabriel Macedo that narrates child Jesus making 12 doves of mud and giving them life. Sounds familiar? Yes, we know where these stories come from. Oh, and by the way, that's in the book. I held up the book earlier from Gabriel Said Reynolds. He covers those are the kinds of things he covers in that book. So if you're interested in that, keep in mind, lots of people would look at that book and go, "Oh my goodness, there's no way I'm going to read that." You don't have to read the entire thing. You can keep that as like a reference. You can keep that as a reference, and when you're reading a passage of the Quran, if you want to know where it comes from, you can look it up. So let's see. Well, Peter, fisherman with foot and mouth disease. Yeah, we know. Come on. We know Peter was saying some wild stuff. God used Peter's big mouth anyway. That's true. Thoughts on C.L. Edwards taking shots at God logic? C.L. Edwards taking shots at God logic? I have no idea. I don't know. Like it. God logic would destroy C.L. Edwards. And at this point, it would have to be kind of jealousy. But I have no idea what C.L. Edwards is saying about God logic and wouldn't be interested at all. Faud Shukar married 4 girls over phone. Very civil. I think Muhammad Hijab was talking about, wasn't Hijab once talking about marrying someone over the phone? Because they said, we have to get married right now. We can't resist, or we're going to commit fornication if you don't marry us right now.
Yeah, and the dowry was a McDonald's meal.
Because McDonald's wasn't boycotted at the time, so
He did it, and he did it quickly because he needed to go to the toilet.
yeah, he's like, come on guys, make it quick. So
Over the
he like
phone.
officiated it over WhatsApp. He officiated over WhatsApp within like a couple minutes.
Like a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so
there you go.
this was Muhammad Hijab marrying 2 people over the phone because they were about to they couldn't resist and they were super horny and they had to, so he married them over the phone. And I think he said he had to warn the girl, like, hey, if guy's marrying you like this and he's going to give you McDonald's as a dowry, you seriously think that this guy's your the love of your life or anything? And didn't work out. Shocker. Muhammad Hijab gave some great advice to the woman. She didn't take it, but pretty messed up that he did what really amounted to mutta marriage, temporary marriage.
Yeah.
'Cause they
It
wanted
didn't work out because Allah didn't bless it because of the McDonald's boycott.
Plus, they
In the
forgot to say Inshallah, and Allah knew the future. He knew that there would be a boycott on McDonald's, and so he stopped. He will not bless any marriage that has McDonald's or Starbucks. Wild stuff. All right. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for watching. Again, the link is in the description box. Thanks for Jai and DOC joining us. Again, ladies and gentlemen, what you want to get, what we hope the Muslims would get here is the things you believe, lots of the things you believe about the Quran, lots of things that you believe about the Bible did not come from the Quran. They didn't come from Muhammad. They didn't come from Muhammad's companions. They came from Muslims many centuries later, many centuries after the events, who modified their doctrines, and now you believe them. And right now, any dawah guy can make something up and you'll just believe him. You'll just believe anything he says, even if he's contradicting the Quran, and you just don't care. And then you tell us, hey, why don't you join our religion? What, where I just have to mindlessly agree with what some random guy says, even if it contradicts what I supposedly believe about Allah and the Quran? No thanks, man. No thanks. No thanks. Not interested. But this is something that comes up over and over again. So we just saw an AI discussion about what Muslims believe about the Bible developed over time, and what they believe now has nothing to do with what Allah and Muhammad said. Nothing to do with it. It developed over time in response to discussions with Christians. It is innovation. It is innovation from beginning to end. We saw the same thing with Jai and DOC previously when we went through the history of the Quran and how they ended up with all these different Quran versions, all these different qira'at and so on. You had different Muslims over the centuries saying, hey, we have all these different versions. Let's narrow it down to 7. And then someone comes along later and says, no, 7, that's not enough. Let's make it 10. And they're making all these decisions for you. And these guys have absolutely no authority from God to be making these kinds of decisions. And yet you think their decisions are like part of your religion. Sheer innovation. The satanic verses, the first century and a half of Muslims, they took it for granted. Muhammad received these revelations from Satan. He delivered them, and then Gabriel came along and corrected him later. It's taken for granted. I have dozens of Muslim sources reporting this. What happened? Eventually, Muslim theologians changed their doctrine of Allah's protection of the prophets. They changed the doctrine from Allah will protect a true prophet from persisting in major sin. They changed their doctrine to Allah will protect any true prophet from committing any major sin. And so once that happened, you couldn't have Muhammad delivering revelations from the devil, promoting prayers to pagan goddesses. That would be the unforgivable sin of shirk. And so he would just be doomed. So you have to rewrite history because of your theological developments. Guess what? They didn't get that theological doctrine from the Quran and the Hadith. They got it. They invented that. They invented that as their theology. And then they rewrite the history of your prophet. And then they reinterpret Quran verses that are related to this. It's what you believe is almost entirely man-made. And I'm not even talking about Muhammad obviously fabricating. Even if you took Muhammad seriously as a prophet, what you believe now is almost completely man-made. And you don't care, even slightly. You're happy with it. Wild stuff. All right, Giant DOC, you guys will be back on with me tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think I'm starting off the show with you. I'm going to be going a long time because you guys are actually in a completely different time zone. So we're going to start off with you guys, and sounds like we'll be talking about some of the 2024 Dawah scandals.
Yeah, top five.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. We can't wait.
Yeah, we're really excited about that.
All right,
Remind
guys.
everybody of their wrongdoings.
Yes.
All right, guys. So tomorrow we'll be starting off 6:00 p.m. Eastern time. We're starting off earlier because we want everyone. We want everyone involved tomorrow. Not everyone's going to be along at the same time. We'll have different people coming in at different times, but we'll be starting off 6 p.m. tomorrow with Jai and DOC going through the top 5 Dawah scandals of 2024. We wonder what 2025 will bring. They got to up their scandal game. We'll see. We're going to set the bar tomorrow and say, hey, if they want even more scandals in 2025, this is where the bar is at. And we'll start from there, and we're going to keep going until the ball drops in New York City and we celebrate the new year. All right, guys.
Awesome.
We'll see you all tomorrow. Have fun till then. Except you Dawah guys. You should be wetting your pants. You should be wetting your pants right now. Catch y'all later.